Everyone. My name is Meg McGrath Smith. I'm the Ward 7 counselor and the chair of the Ordinance Committee. I'm calling this meeting to order. We have here in the chambers to my left, committee member Ann Thalheimer and Israel Rivera and Mimi Panich. And on Zoom, we are joined by committee member and vice chair of Ordinance Committee, Linda Vacan. And we also have a number of esteemed guests with us today. We have a packed agenda we're going to move through, and some items are going to be taken out of order in order to be respectful of the guests that are here. So I'm going to name that up top. Today is April 28th, 2026. The spring is rocketing along, and it's beautiful outside. I hope you all got some sunshine. And it is 7 o'clock, and we are going to be moving into a busy and hopefully fun agenda today. As always, this meeting is happening in City Council chambers, but it is also available online through Zoom or on Channel 15, and in both places, translation is available. And thank you very much to our translators who always do an awesome job. We are going to leave item 1 on the table because our esteemed City Council assistant, Jeffrey Anderson Burgos, was not able to complete the minutes for that. It was a very long meeting. The minutes are going to be very long for it, and while he did some yeoman's work to make his way through it, he was not able to finish those minutes before this meeting. So we're going to leave that on the table, and we're going to move to item 2. If I could have a motion to open the public hearing and take item 2 off the table.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Oh, my.
I was going to say, do you need to do the thing?
Okay, because we are hybrid, because one of our members is on Zoom, motion to take a roll call vote that for the purposes of this meeting will be applicable to all motions to remove an item from the table, place items on the table, package items, open, continue, or close a public hearing, or suspend the rules unless there is an objection.
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All right, roll call vote. Counselor Vacan.
Yes.
Counselor Thalheimer.
Yes.
Counselor Panich.
Yes.
Counselor Rivera.
Yes.
Counselor McGrath Smith, yes. All right, I heard a motion for us to take up item 2 and open the public hearing. All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
This is a public hearing for a special permit application of Riverside Cannabis for a cultivation facility at 1 Cabot Street. And then the number there is 048-01010. And we have 2 members of the public who are here to speak to this application. If the 2 of you would like to come into chambers, if you want to sit right here in these seats here, come on in. And when you speak into the mic, just make sure that the mic is pretty close to you so that your voice is clear, and make sure that the green light is on. You just want to press where it says push before you speak. And I would love to have you give us a brief and brilliant presentation as you just walk us through your plans and through the special permit that you've asked for.
Hi, my name is Damaris Aponte, and I'm the owner of Riverside Cannabis, located at 1 Cabot Street in Holyoke. I'm here to request a special permit for the build-out of the cultivation facility. It is an 1,800 square foot facility, and where I will be growing cannabis.
Thank you. Is there anything else you'd like to add?
You want to say anything?
You could just introduce yourself if you want to.
Hi, Manny Westpaw, COO of Riverside Cannabis.
Thank you. I would like to, at this point, open up for questions from the committee. And I see Councilor Vacan, your hand is up.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I would first be interested to understand if the applicant has received the letter that we received from the planning board dated March 20th.
No, what does the letter consist of?
It's a letter that was sent to us for our packet for the meeting tonight from the planning board. It's about 2 pages long, and it is raising many areas of the application that need further information that they're sending over to us.
No, I wasn't aware of this. And who did you guys send this to?
We just received this from the planning board
Okay.
just before this meeting.
Okay.
And so I just wanted to, go through some of the pieces of that. And I'm sure others took
Okay.
notes as well. it sounded like a pre-application meeting needed to be set up with the planning department as one of those first components. And we wondered, or I wondered, what progress has been made to set up and conduct that pre-application meeting with the planning department.
The planning department sent me to you guys to get a special permit before I could do anything.
I see
if I
Councilor
may.
Panich's hand.
Yeah, this letter, which is actually dated March 20th, which is now some time ago, is part of a process that the planning board and ordinance have worked out and is reflected in our ordinances, where planning reviews plans for cannabis applications before they come to us for a special permit. It's not a formal review, they don't approve, but they advise us as to the status of the application and discussions with applicants and what appears to be missing from an application, if anything. And what they have informed us of is that a pre-application meeting with the planning department is required, and it did not take place. I believe that they reached out to you to try to set it up, and a number of things that are required by our ordinance were not submitted and they could not review. And under the circumstances, this letter tells us that we really need to see these materials. And
So yes, this was submitted to Jeff with your planning board. I personally walked, we
Okay.
both walked, we handed packets, emailed. We were directed to go back to the city clerk's office because they changed the old way of that's how it used to go, is what he told us. This came directly from Jeff. I have email transmittals back and forth between me and him. So like we did, and we submitted a whole packet, which we have here again today. That we gave today. So we gave a package with our narrative, description, our plans, our build out. Everything was very extensive. That was emailed, and he said, "Oh, just go through the city clerk, and then they'll take care of it." So just so you know, that was taken care of. I'm just not sure where the miscommunication came from.
Sure. Well, it sounds to me, just reading the letter, so it sounds to me like it does make sense. I think in the end, we're going to end up continuing the hearing to a date certain so that you'll know exactly when that date is. And in the meantime, you'll go back to Jeff, you'll set up a follow-up meeting with him, and then go through the aspects in this letter. So they name things like making sure that you've identified the on-site employee parking, and really a number of them are related to parking. The third one, and this has happened in the past to other applicants too, and needing a security plan that it's current from the current chief of police, Chief Keenan. It may be a site that already has cultivation facilities there, and so there's an existing security plan, but you still need to get a new security letter from the current chief of police for how your facility is going to be managing it. And that it's deemed sufficient by the chief of police. A question around if there will be a backup generator, a question around an impact statement and a traffic impact statement, a life safety egress plan, and then it's looking like they're looking for a revised submission of just some of the basic planning documents, like an elevation plan, a photometric plan, the separate survey plan and improvement plans. And then there's a question around signs and signage, and if new signage will be added. So there's a series of questions here, and I think that in many ways we hear applicants come to us and say, I feel like we've been sent multiple places, or there was confusion. I thought I had to go here. I was sent there, then I went here.
I respect that. I already have a business in the area, so everything you're saying is not new to me. I already run a business there that's been a very good, successful business for 2 years. So everything you're saying to me is nothing new. It's information I could get you. What I don't like is the miscommunication between you guys and Jeff Burkott, because I've been here before. So I ran around like 4 or 5 different days because you guys and the planning board cannot get your planning together, which I don't appreciate because it's my time that's being wasted. Also, when Jeffrey or somebody could send me an email letting me know about these questions instead of having you guys come here reminding me of this meeting and wasting my time again. I just shut down my business for 3 hours that I'm not happy about right now to come to this meeting, just letting you guys know. I have all this information and I will get you this information. So the way you guys are talking like, oh, parking and lights, that's not a problem. I will get you that information, and parking is not a problem. Let me let you guys know. You guys seem to have a very big problem with 1 Cabot Street and the parking, but let me get one thing clear. Who gave the okay to the business across the street that right now has like 25 18-wheelers coming in and out of that space? You guys are okay with that space, but you guys are questioning me right now about an 1,800 space for cultivation that I'm gonna employ city people that live in the city of Holyoke. I'm not happy with these questions, letting you guys know. I am a resident of Holyoke. I've lived here my whole life. I don't have a problem with getting you the information, but don't come telling me that you gotta get this, and that, when you guys could have let me know this before. Very upset for you guys wasting my time now and for the past 2 months. Please don't do this to nobody else. I pay a lot of tax money here, probably more than what you guys pay for my business, and I also am a homeowner in the city of Holyoke. So just letting you guys know about what you guys got running in the city of Holyoke, get it together. I am a resident of Holyoke. I am a big part of Holyoke. I volunteer in the city of Holyoke, and I'm a big community. So don't come with that, I need signs, and I need this, and I need that. I don't like that communication right now. Just letting you guys know. Wasting my time, shut my business for 3 hours, lots of money. Please don't do this to me or anybody else again in this, trying to get a business open. I will get you this information. Things that you're asking is not a concern, but I'm very upset the way you guys are speaking to me, like parking and signs and egress lighting. If you will look and know who I am, you will see that my business is right next door to it. Right next door. I just got to open the door and there's my business. So yes, everything you're asking is not a problem, but I need everybody to stop looking at 1 Cabot Street like that place is a problem. It's a very well running building. I don't know what's going on with anybody there, but don't come at me about parking and traffic. Look at the business you guys just okayed across the street before I want to hear anything about traffic or parking or business. Across the street on Canal Street, many public parking spaces. There's also a city parking lot, very, very big in front of Q-Smart that I personally rented out, paid for to use, and it's public parking. Don't want to hear parking again when I come here to try to get my special permit again, okay? I'm just saying, it's just rules. It's just making me feel like you guys are coming at us at 1 Cabot Street for things that we've already discussed enough. You guys have enough parking signage. You guys have already, though, what's happening in that building. You guys don't need to keep asking every business there. I already gave it to you guys from my other business. What is the big difference from my other business? Just a different name. And I'm going to do something different in the business. But you guys keep asking for stuff that you guys are already getting from every business there. It's not new. It's what I'm saying. It's not new, and it's just what's upsetting. It's what I'm trying to say. So I just need everybody to like back off 1 Cabot Street a little bit. It's an amazing business. We have so many employees working there, so many that they don't even have cars. Like they walk there. I am so thankful for that warehouse that's open, and you guys don't even know that how many jobs are there from people that live in the flats in South Holyoke. So many people that walk from up the hill because it's a place that you could walk to. That's what Holyoke was about. You could walk to the warehouses. That's what's the whole purpose of us opening these businesses near the warehouses and near these buildings, like where people live at. So I just need you guys to understand that, and it's not a problem for me to get this information. Like I said, I'm just upset that I shut my business for 3 hours and that cost me money. And this letter dated March 24th. I live in Holyoke. Come on, you could have mailed this to my house or send it to my business, and you're just gonna come in. I have concerns and this and this and that. I feel attacked, and I'm not gonna lie to you guys. And I feel called out, but it's not a problem. I'm gonna get what you guys want because it's nothing new. I already run a successful business next door, so it's all I want you guys to know. So thank you guys for everything. It's nothing personal to anybody. I just wanted everybody to know how I felt and what I thought about the situation at 1 Cabot Street. And I'll get you guys information. I will sit with Jeff. I have no problem with Jeff. Worked with him many times. When I went to the city clerk, the girls were so confused. They were taking my money like, what is going on? We never handled this. Why are we handling this? And I'm like, that's what Jeff said. And they were all like, oh my God, this is crazy. Now I could tell why. Look at the mess y'all got going on. And I'm a resident of Holyoke. Very, very not good. Not good. I have a lot of friends that are going to come online to watch this, and look at what they're watching. My city. Very proud of this. Please let's get this together, ladies and gentlemen, because I don't want this to happen again. Very proud resident of this city. Let's get it together. Thank you guys so much, and I'll make sure to get everything I need, and we see you guys again in a few months.
Yes, I have no doubt that you will get all of this, and also that you could have already submitted it. From my perspective, I'm shocked that you didn't have the letter because this was dated by March 20th. And so again, this is the packet that we get for our meeting. And our job in this city is, we're not the executive branch or the legislative branch. Our job is to get the materials and then to be able to give the special permit based on the process we have to follow. So similarly, I'm sure you have this information. I have no doubt. I've seen you in the community and a million things, and I have no doubt that you have this information. And I'm sorry that you didn't get the letter ahead of time to be able to bring that information ahead of time. And just from our perspective, as I read this stuff off into the record, the goal here is in no way, from my perspective, to attack. It was just to name, is what we're waiting for. I have no doubt that you'll bring it to us soon. We can continue the hearing to a date soon, and I'm sure we will make this
And
move
just so we're
forward for
clear,
you.
right, everything was submitted, everything on this form. I have a narrative packet here. Let me just see this for a second.
Mm-hmm.
So I have a narrative packet that was submitted to Jeff. Personally, also turned to city clerk, 3 copies of each. It goes over parking. We're doing this in a phase thing. So we have contractors that we've paid that are just held up for us to do we're doing a phase 1, phase 2 for cultivation. It talks about parking, it talks about signage. There's a security plan here that's signed off on. There's documents, there's prints, there's surveys that are here as well. And we submitted all of these documents, and that's where the frustrations lie. Because like, we did everything we asked for, and like you said, we got ran around circles for 4 days.
Thank you. Councilor Rivera.
Yes, first, I want the mayor, I want to say thank you for having the business in Holyoke, being one of the only residents that is from the city, that kind of grew up in the city and was able to open a business in the city. You kind of stole my thunder in saying that you already have a business in the city and that you've already been doing this. I think the part that continues to come up for me is the miscommunication with regards to ourselves, and because this is similar to what happened yesterday at DGNR with Schermerhorns and their sign situation, where they were sent, or they had a misunderstanding of how things should have gone. Here, it feels like if you have everything already set, it should have been that you were first setting the meeting with the planning board instead of coming to us. And for that, I guess I will say I apologize on behalf of whomever made the decision and took the wrong steps. But I think there's a piece of it where you're familiar with this process and you fully understand what's expected. You've come here before us to get Blossom Flower. I'll shout it out so that way it gets some recognition too as well. But like ultimately, I don't believe that this is done on purpose, and I don't think any of the colleagues do either. Like, it's not intentional that you came to us first instead of going to planning. I think it was probably more than likely a miscommunication or misunderstanding somewhere. That said, I feel like there has to be, I think for us, a way to be able to have communication, especially with business owners that are actually like from the community and like are vested in the community more than just the business, to kind of have an approach of like, how are we negotiating or having these conversations to make sure that the process that they're taking is one that isn't wasting their time. I think we should do that for everyone, but I think obviously at the same time, I would feel the same way. I'd be honest with you, if I'm coming in having to take time off of my work to think that I'm going to have a permit. I actually seen your post on Facebook that you said that you were proud to come in today, and to come into this, I would actually feel some type of way as well. So I respect that. But the process is the process. It's the only thing I'll say.
But Jeff doesn't even know the process. Can you guys let
I
Jeff know?
can't.
I'm just like, I feel so bad.
I can't
Jeff
speak
worked
to
out
that.
since
So, so yeah, I just wanted to say that and put that out there. But yeah. Go ahead.
And Counselor Tellheimer.
Yeah, I am also shocked that this letter did not come to you, because my first thought was, does this letter mention things that are in this packet? And the packet came in on it looks like February 17th is when it was received up top. This letter then went out March 20th, and that is a long gap in time. And the fact that it didn't go to you, I think, is unconscionable, because it seems like that's the first person it should have gone, like, your application is incomplete. This might be me not totally understanding the process on this one, but it seems like a miscommunication, and this was extra work for someone, like, a checklist, like some checklist that an applicant gets, where it's like, these are the things you need, these are the steps. Because if you had been able to schedule that meeting, the review with Jeff, none of this could have been avoided.
Yeah.
But it might be a situation where you didn't know that you needed to do that, and he didn't think to mention it, or it wasn't part of the process, or easily something here should be streamlined. I'm gonna, I think, pass this to Councilor Panich per permission of the chair. You may know more about this process than I do, but I feel you. And I want to really recognize, I appreciate you coming down here and taking time, and also the significant expense involved in closing a business for 3 hours. That is a bite in income, and this is a frustrating process, and I'm very sorry about that. So, right on, thank you.
Sorry, I think it was Counselor Basinette's child. All right, Counselor Panich.
Yeah, I just want to point out that although something has clearly gone wrong, and this is very frustrating, and I share my colleagues' feelings about that, this is not a letter that was ever intended to be sent to you all. Presumably you were in discussions with the staff as they, helped to produce this review for us. But this is a communication that is prepared for the City Council and for the Ordinance Committee to help us in reviewing your application. That's why the timing is what it is. They will have gone through the materials, I hope tried to speak to you, because there should have been the pre-application meeting, and I would have expected them to discuss with you if they thought that there was anything inadequate before they referred this to us. But yeah, this, I have to, ask my colleagues to not blame them for not sending the letter to you. It is not a letter for you. And we can certainly find out what the communications were between you and the planning staff, but that's why you didn't get it.
Counselor Tellheimer, and then Counselor Rivera.
Excellent. Thank you for that communication. I didn't know that piece of it. I don't want to finger point, but I do feel like this would have been an opportune moment for some kind of outreach. So thank you.
Yeah, no, and to your point, Councilor Panich, through the chair, I fully get, like, this is a communication to us, but I feel like there has to be some form of communication to whomever it is that's expected to adhere to certain things that are being requested, right? So for me, it's like, it doesn't have to be this, but like in general, like what, I guess I would ask, like, if I'm applying for that, what would be the process? Because I don't even understand the process as a city councilor. Like, there are a lot of things that people come and say, hey, I want to apply, but there's a significant process, and I fully don't understand that. So like, if I went to apply and I'm going to the clerk's office and they're telling me this, and I go to this other office and they're telling me this, I'm going to kind of follow what they say and expect communication to come back to me. I get this is easy for us because it's public record, but I also kind of feel like any communication between their office and them should also be public record in a sense too. So like, there should be a notice or of some sort, not one that is ordinance style, but like one that is some form of email or whatever it is. Hey, this is part of the process. This came up, right? And this will be addressed at the council tonight when, like I'm sure if Ms. Councilor McGrath Smith ahead of time had time to look at this and this came up, she probably would have reached out to you herself to talk to you about some of these things, or through me or through someone else to try to figure out how this doesn't happen, right? But at the end of the day, I feel like I'm not trying to blame anybody. I'm just trying to figure out what is the disconnect, because this is not the first time. This has actually been happening since before I was on the council, and it's something that some of us have been trying to work on streamlining around the process. So it's just, I guess, there is no fault because there's no real process right now, I guess it seems like. But like just trying to call that out or not call it out, call it in, right? Call it in to make it better and improve the process, because it's 2 nights in a row for me, actually. Last night, I heard it from the Sherman Horns guy in a different context, and here I'm hearing it again. Totally different area of the community, totally different business, and it's a very similar situation where there's frustration being built, and it's kind of like a organizational structure thing versus nobody trying to provide process, I guess, if that makes sense.
Yes.
Counselor?
Yes, Councilor
May.
Devine.
Thank you. I'm not sure how often it happens, but all department heads and the mayor meet. I don't know if it's once a week, once every 2 weeks. This should definitely be put on the planning director and maybe the city clerk to come together and get a thing that works a lot better. I just came in late on this, but I got it. So I think that they need to do that as part of that group that meets the department heads.
Yeah, I had written a note down on my agenda. Just, does it look like?
I don't know what happened. I don't know where the disconnect
Yeah.
came. I never had a problem before in the past. I
Yeah.
went straight to the planning department. I sat with them. We discussed everything. I gave them all the information. Everything was planned. Sorry, I'm just loud enough, so I figure you guys hear me. I'm just saying, it's be easy. Like, I will go to planning department. They'll let me know everything that I had to do, every step. I'll take every step. I'll fix it. Jeffrey, Aaron, back in the days, whatever. I'll fix it when everything was set and settled. Is when I'll go to. Then that's when I'll put in for the special permit. And when I come in here, everything was fine. So this time around, Jeff told me they changed things around. So when I went to the city clerk, they were so confused, and everybody's confused right now. But one person changed it, and nobody knows who it was. It was working fine. Who changed it? It was fine. Leave it alone. Put it back to the way it was. It was fine. It was less work put on you guys, and the planning department, the departments that were supposed to be doing this job, did it. And by the time it came here, it was already ready to get. So that's why I was so confused why I had to come here first. So I thought it was here first, then the planning department. You know, it just became backwards, and that's where I'm a little frustrated, because it was easier, is what I'm saying, and we shouldn't make things harder. We should not in Holyoke.
Yeah, and like the mayor is saying, like the first process for Blossom Flower, we went right through the same process. When we came for the second time for Riverside Cannabis, we assumed to follow the same exact steps. And when we went to Jeff, he was like, oh no, we don't handle the cannabis anymore. That's handled through the city clerk. They had a new affidavit. And like she said, we went to the city clerk. They didn't know. We went back upstairs and they said, they don't know what you're talking about. And then they said, oh no, you got to go back downstairs and pay this thing. And then they'll submit everything and then they'll reach out. We didn't receive any reach outs. And so something changed. And like I said, there's that's where the miscommunication is. So my question, just from reading this letter that we were not supposed to receive, right, that we received today at this meeting, is it says that we have to set up a meeting. How do we do that? Because if I go back to Jeff, he's going to tell me to go back to the city clerk. So how do we do that? We'd like to know that so that we can move forward with these requirements that you're asking.
I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to make sure that I have the right contact information for the two of you before you leave tonight. And we will make sure, I'll talk to Jeff, I'll talk to Brenna, I'll talk to our Jeffrey, our city council assistant, and we'll figure out how to make sure that you're getting in the right communication with the right person. And I apologize.
It's okay. It's not you guys. I'm just frustrated.
Yeah, it's frustrating.
As you should be. Yeah, I totally get it. Yeah, no,
Okay, we'll come back here.
that being said, we do have to continue as a public hearing to a date certain. So I want to give you two. Yes, Jeffrey?
Madam Chair, I just wanted to note there is one hand up from a member of the public looking to speak.
My apologies. Hold on. Let me change the view of the Zoom screen so I can see that person. Oh, okay. Oh, Frank Daly, is that you? Do you want to speak, Frank?
Yes, if possible.
Absolutely.
Perfect. I'm glad you can hear me. First, thank you all. It's Frank Daly, co-owner of Boston Bud Factory, located at 73 Sargent Street. And I just wanted to take a moment to thank you all for this because we're getting ready to go through the same process for social consumption, and it gets to be a very confusing process to understand what is actually required, and I'm not sure anyone actually knows entirely what is required. So for a business owner, it gets to be very frustrating as to who to talk to. So I appreciate the efforts that the committee has taken to try and put this together and get everybody communicate together. I also wanted to show support for Blossom Flower and Damaris because Councilor Rivera noted it as well. There's only one business that has somebody that lives in town, and she is the only resident that is running a business in the cannabis industry, and there are a lot of them. So, you know, I hope that people will help us smaller players get support like the bigger players get as well. So that's all I wanted to say, and thank you all for your work on this.
Thank you. Yes. And is there anyone else from the public who wants to speak at this time? Or who has any questions? Okay, thank you, Jeffrey, for catching that for me. Sorry, now I have the right screen. I can see the hands up of other folks. Okay, we do need to continue it to a date certain. So we have 2 meetings coming up, and I think that my question for you all is sort of what's the right date in terms of how fast this process needs to move for you versus also all the communication that needs to occur so that you have everything in place. We do have a May 7th meeting, and then we have a May 26th meeting. Okay. Councilor Vera, I see your hand.
I think my only question is like, how fast can the planning board?
That's
He has everything. Jeff has everything.
I just,
Oh, make sure the microphone.
if you could turn the microphone on just so we can hear you when you speak.
We'll try. May 7th is April. What do you think? That's next week.
It might be
May
too-
27th. I'm sorry.
Yes,
Yeah,
I was
let's do
gonna
that.
say.
Perfect.
That's next week. Yeah,
'Cause
and
it's just
I'm getting.
fast.
I can't. I'm getting surgery Monday the 5th. I can't talk for a few days. So yeah,
Okay.
27th.
All right, so it's the 26th. Okay, so I'll make a motion for us to continue this public hearing to May 26th at 6:30 p.m.
Second.
All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, thank you so much for coming in. And I just want to quickly make sure I have the correct content information for you. Okay, so this is what we have. I don't know if I see an email here. I see a phone number. Is there an email? Would you mind writing your email down for me?
She just wants it to match. Just natural. It makes it match.
What?
Teacher, I passed him a pen, and you were like, here you go.
Oh.
Thank you.
Thank you. This is my favorite grading pen, purple.
Because
Yes.
Jeffrey handed them one. Great.
We should have gotten it better. Okay, thank you. I want to take one item out of order because we have a
Motion to
guest
take up item
in the
9
audience.
out of order.
Second.
Thank you. All those in favor?
Aye.
Item 9 is the committee on Joint Committee of City Council and School, to whom was referred an order filed by School Committee Member Lubold in the interest of student safety, that the school committee, in coordination with the City Council, consider adopting Massachusetts General Law, Chapter 40, Section 71, School Bus Violation Detection Monitoring Systems, Installation and Operation. Recommended the order be referred to the Ordinance Committee. And we have in our packet the language from the state statute that we would be asked to consider adopting. And we also have members from the Joint Committee. We have Councilor Rivera here, and we also have a representative from the company, Mr. Gorman. Councilor Rivera, do you want to start by just giving a brief and brilliant from the Joint Committee?
Sure, thank you, Madam Chair. So we had a lengthy conversation on this. I'll just give a few points on it. Obviously, public safety and safety for the kids. not going to cost the city any money. They installed it. There's not a minimum or maximum amount of the buses that will have the devices on there. And to my understanding, this law already was passed. And also, I would just give it out, and you could explain everything, the goodness of this, and why we need it.
And this was fully supported by the Joint Committee? This
It
comes
was.
with your recommendation to us?
Correct.
Okay, thank you. I also see School Committee Member Patty Norris-Lubold joining us. Thank you so much for joining us. Patty, do you want to say anything before I have Mr. Gorman speak?
Thank you. Yeah, I would just echo what Councilor Rivera said. This is about student safety, and it's an opportunity for us to adopt this Massachusetts law that gives us an opportunity to bring this new technology to our community to protect students. We have a number of students who have long bus routes. I know in my Ward 6, many of our students come from the Flats up to Jarvis Avenue to Sullivan Middle School. And we also have seen over this how the state has, with these programs that have been implemented in various communities, that the problem is actually happening more frequently than anyone could imagine. And we know that our law enforcement can't be everywhere all of the time. And the good thing about this particular bill, I feel, is that it's not something that is it's a behavior change. What people have noticed is that as these fines are implemented, it's almost like a one and done situation in terms of the research that's been done so far, where people curb their behavior, and that of course increases safety on our streets. So that was one of the reasons why I had wanted to pursue this and ask you all to consider it. So I'm so grateful that you're taking this up.
Absolutely, and thank you so much for bringing it from the Joint Committee to us. Mr. Gorman, do you want to introduce yourself and walk us through how this technology works and how it would operate here in our city?
Thank you for having me. My name is Michael Gorman. I represent Bus Patrol here in Massachusetts. Our core mission for Bus Patrol is one thing, and that's child safety. The technology works very simply. It's affixed to the side and front and back of a bus, and that is purposeful. It captures in video and in film a car that has not obeyed the law. The law, as long as we've been around, is when that arm is extended and the bus is come to a stop, you as a driver have to stop. Now, so many things can go sideways if a car doesn't obey that law. You know, you have a kid that forgot his lunch in his mom's car, or a kid who forgot his homework and jets out from where he just was, a kid busy talking to another friend getting off the bus. So many things come into play when children are leaving and entering a bus. And what our technology does is it brings to the height of awareness. So before the citation program would begin in Holyoke, what we do is a very, very pronounced information warning period. That's roughly 30 days. So if you broke the law during that 30 days, a Holyoke resident, or anyone for that matter that's driving through the streets of Holyoke and commits this act, would receive a warning in the mail explaining explicitly what you've done and why you're receiving this notification. This notification will also be explained a little further, saying, if you do this again, when the warning period is over, you will receive a citation. That citation would be in the amount of $250, much like when an officer pulls you over in Holyoke tomorrow morning for the same violation, it's the same dollar amount. So our technology is very, very explicit. It captures those moments. We compartmentalize them digitally, and we produce them for the police department. We review them prior, and what we do in that review period is we remove all the frivolous, all the things that would never quantify or qualify a citation in Holyoke. And what would happen from there is, once we've quote-unquote cleaned the digitized package, the police receive it, and then they begin their close review one by one process on a weekly basis during the course of the school year. And what that does is it allows for people to become better drivers. Now, the national average, the propensity to become a repeat offender when you receive one of these citations dwindles to under 10%. So, that in itself is a stark reminder that this works. It works because people don't want to pay $250. It works because it wakes them up and says, oh my, I really did a bad thing here. I really need to pay attention. I need to put my phone down. I need to pay attention when I'm driving. Our technology is not just a contract with the City of Holyoke, but rather a partnership in terms of how we act as a company with the municipality of Holyoke. And what we do is one continuous yearly relationship education for your community to remind people that this is real, this is a responsibility, and it's an obligation to the drivers on your streets. And we do that in a way that identifies who your community is. We produce this in written form, in digital form, in radio form, whatever language is suitable and desirable from your board and the police and the school department. So what we've done in effect is create a new culture of better driving, a new culture of more responsible driving and less reckless driving, and you'll see a difference.
Thank you so much. At this time, I'd like to open it up for questions from the committee and other councilors. I see Councilor Panich, then Councilor Rivera.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And it does sound like remarkable technology. And I just have one question, which I'm sure you're used to answering, which is, how do you handle data protection? Because you're picking up...
I'm sorry, I didn't catch that.
Data protection, because you're going to wind up with a lot of personally identifiable information, which you need to do the job. So you will also, I'm sure, pick up people and cars that are not disobeying the law. And I'm sure you have a data security plan, and I'm curious about it.
Well, I'm glad you asked, because it is a very pronounced part of who we are as a company. First and foremost, this is about the car and the plate, not the person. So there is no identifiable video of a person or people. Okay, so that's number one. Number two is if it is an alleged citation and it goes through the process of becoming an actual citation, that citation information stays viable in our technology base until that citation has been paid or adjudicated in a judicial setting. Once either occur, all destroyed. And we aren't in the business of holding, maintaining data exclusivity or data mining or data resourcing. We don't do that. It's not our business. We don't hold on to the information. We destroy it.
No, thank you.
Of course.
So to be clear, the data that you present or that you collect is not used in data analytics, for example, that could be sold to third-party vendors or other companies who might find that information, monetizable.
No, we don't. That's not why we exist. We exist for one core reason, and that's keeping streets safer for kids. We don't get into the business of all of that other stuff. We destroy the data once the data's purpose is done. It's done once you've paid it, the fine. It's done once the judicial system has taken its course. After those moments, and if by chance an officer hits during the process and declines to cite the driver for whatever reason, that data is destroyed immediately.
Thank you. Councilor Rivera?
Yes, thank you. Thank you for that question and answering. That was one of my questions around the data. I think another question, couple. One is not necessarily for you, but it would be on our behalf. Did they mention at the meeting the current numbers of violations that we have in the city around that particular? Do we have, I mean, if you have that information, that's great, but.
They don't, but I will say nationally, on average, and I'm sure Holyoke's no different, on average.
I might say yes, but who
when
knows?
when a bus leaves the bus yard in the morning and in the afternoon, the reality is a bus will capture a violation, sometimes more. Now, we were the accepted vendor in Chicopee. Now, we're entering the finality stages of those warning periods, but we still do the analytics of data in terms of citations that are coming in and monitoring them. We do that purposefully. So let's say, for example, one of your bus routes has a higher degree of citations. We jot that, we mark that, and we speak to the school department and say, listen, if you move that bus route, we think you can reduce citations and make the location safer for kids. So what happens is when we're not just collecting citations and so forth, we're also capturing where these bus citations are occurring, so we can work with the bus company and the school department to augment those moments with different routes and different opportunities to bring those numbers down. So every community that has buses collects fines. It's just a reality nationwide. Last year in America, 45 million cars did not stop when the stop arm was extended.
No, I'm not. I don't want to like push back on any of that. I fully agree that. I think for me, it's more about like evaluating the efficiency, right, in the long term or in the next year or two, right. We have, I believe, crime analysts, right, and it's gathering the information from them and just trying to find out what we have, what are the current violations now, what are the numbers, right, and then since we've implemented whatever it is that's being implemented, what's the change? What is the impact? It would be easy. It would be better for us to measure that, like having those numbers ahead of time. I'm sure we can get them after, but it's just, that was one of my questions is like, what is the current for us here in Holyoke?
Yeah, unfortunately, when communities don't have a program like this, unfortunately, it's more anecdotal. And it's more when moments like a bus driver calls it into the police department. And that doesn't always happen. It's subject to their own pace and what's happening in their day. So it's not, without the kind of technology we're talking about, it's generally factually inaccurate because there is no monitoring. There's no way to figuratively monitor it unless you had a police car at every bus route every day.
Yes.
It's impossible.
Yes. No, so I guess I appreciate that. Again, I think for me is on what it is, our data that led to this point in the first place. But I appreciate that piece. And then the other one is how does the fine break down? Like, where does the money, like, how does that break down? Like, does the city collect all the money, or is there a portion of it that goes to your organization? Because there's no cost. And if there's no cost, like, how is this being kind of
Well, that's a valid question.
They collect the citation.
If you or I were pulled over this morning by a police officer for this violation, that $250 ticket we receive from that officer, 50% of that ticket goes to the state, okay? With this technology, under this law, 100% of that $250 ticket stays in Holyoke. So one of the things we do when we set up a program in a community is we set up a separate fund in the municipal treasurer's office to collect these funds. Now, these funds are collected, and this way they're collected in the separate fund, so there's accountability. there's an awareness, so a police chief, a mayor, a city council, a school superintendent can look at it 6 months, a year and a half from now and say, what's going on, how's it working, is it successful? So that's number one. How we would be compensated, we are compensated in one way. We work with the police every single week with this documented list of alleged violations. So what we do is we charge $250 per bus per month. Now that equates to, let's play this out, let's say the first week of May. The bus fleet leaves the bus yard. That Monday, we are paid $250 per bus per month. So that first Monday of the month, our company gets paid for that month. Tuesday through Friday and the remainder of the month, every single dollar collected through citations goes into the Holyoke General Fund for these citations. So it's not an accident that Holyoke was part of this selected process. Holyoke's a large city, large bus count, a large student body count, so the analytics works for this kind of program, so the city would be able to reduce reckless driving and simultaneously put money in their general fund while our company is paid for the services of working with the police on this technology on a weekly basis, along with making sure the technology is working effectively.
So just to be clear, in the beginning, you guys will take on the burden of the cost.
We pay for the equipment,
right?
Never to bill Holyoke. We pay for the installation, never to bill Holyoke. And we're only compensated when citations come in. So
if there's a month that there's no citation, you're not compensated.
You don't have to take money from a separate pool to make sure we're compensated. It doesn't work that way. It stays, we're only compensated when that general fund collection that we've created for the city of Holyoke for this program is accumulating funds.
No, I understand that, but I think that if your program is as effective as you say it is, in 3 months, 4 months, and let's say there's no tickets in 3-4 months.
We don't get paid.
You don't get paid at all for those 3-4 months. All right. I don't see how it works, but.
Well, we're in over 20 states, we're in over 450 communities, we're in over, put it this way, for every bus in America that uses technology of this sort, we're on 9 of those 10 buses.
Awesome. All right. So for me, that was it. Those are my questions. Thank you.
Thank you.
I have one more question just to follow up with Councilor Rivera on just the financial structure of it. You had said that it was $250 per bus out of that collected fund. So if there is enough to cover, how many buses does Holyoke have currently that would be part of this contract?
Well, I'm not exactly sure how many the school department is interested in supplying the technology on. Candidly, we don't want to be the ones to be that judicious about who has a safer bus ride than who doesn't. We like an equitable moment for all the kids. And I think, after conversations with the mayor and the superintendent, I think they feel the same way that, they'd like an equitable moment for each of the students as well. So whatever that bus total is what we would be outfitting for the technology.
I'm just trying to do the math in my mind, and it would be helpful for me to have the number of buses. Maybe Ms. Lubold has it, or someone else does.
If I remember correctly, and don't hold me to it, I believe it's somewhere in the vicinity of 40 buses.
Okay. And I'm sure some of them are mini buses or larger buses. Yes, Ms. Lubold.
So in terms of where we're at and what we're asking for, and this, I just wanted to build on Councilor Rivera's comment about what is the problem current state. So the challenge is that we don't really have a good bellwether of what it is right now, because as we see in other communities, including Chicopee, the problem was existing but not being caught because of police attention and so on and so forth being diverted otherwise, and being relying on the bus company to do that. But the beauty part of this particular ask of the ordinance committee to allow us to put the Massachusetts state law on the books, it allows for deeper discussion to what you're talking about, Councilor McGrath, which is how do we design this for our community? What makes sense for our community? And that would be, once we have the law on the books, the school department, the mayor's office, the police department can look at that data and determine, do we want to start with a pilot program? Do we want to use all of our buses? And they would also include Durham, our bus company, to develop that for something that makes sense for Holyoke. Because yes, Chicopee is right across the river, but we're not the same city, right? So we need to develop something. But passing this law, getting this law on the book, gives us the opportunity to be able to design for our city what makes sense there.
Thank you. Yes, that's very important context. I see Councilor Thalheimer and then Councilor Rivera.
A fast question about the technology. It is some kind of recording system. Is it recording the entire time that the bus is in motion, or is it only triggered when the swing arm is activated?
It's a good question. There's 4 cameras, so it's always filming, but the 2 cameras that are on the side of the stop arm are the camera in the video recording that when that stop arm opens, that's what triggers the work of isolating which cars are not obeying that moment.
Excellent. That was my question, because in a situation where it is always recording, there is potential for many things to be caught.
Well, and that is also why we don't hand over to the police that entire package.
Right.
And we go through it and we cull it for all the things that would never quantify a viable alleged citation.
Right. So we're looking specifically only at the vehicles that violate this
and that's
particular.
important because the amount of man hours the police would be dedicating to this would be drastically overutilized if we were not making it the best reflection of what that week's work was.
Excellent. Thank you.
Councilor Rivera and then Councilor Rivera.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So to the question for Councilor Rivera, I did see the news in Chicopee when they started theirs. They did announce over 300 violations were issued, I think within the first couple of weeks.
First month.
First month, that came out, I saw that in the news. How accurate it is, I don't know, but I could talk to that amount. And then also, I do know so many bus drivers. So if we want to know monthly, we can contact them, and they would say, because they have a protocol, which is they fill out a report, and 99% of the time they don't get an answer of what happened, because I have called on several times, even in the flats on Kelly School, the side on Stamasset Street, the buses will be parked there, dropping off the kids, and the people are just driving right by. Kids are trying to cross over and they just drive right by. So I have contacted the police department myself. They have come down and try to stay there during the bus drop off and pickup. People still don't respect. So I would think they would have more accurate numbers. And then to this point, just last week, my granddaughters got off, both of them got off on the corner of Main and Spring. The armbar was out. The car just came. So my oldest granddaughter had to grab the little one by the hair and drag her back, because then my daughter was crying with a what if would have happened.
Right.
The bus driver was there beeping the horn. The guy just flew down Main Street. The people in the corner also, they were all screaming at him, and he just drove by. He honestly did not care. So that would have been a what if, and she sat there and cried, what if? That driver would not have been
in every
alive.
sector of the Commonwealth.
I think we can all agree that distracted driving has become a national epidemic. my seventh graders do a technology unit, and at the end of Reading the Giver, they get to do a research paper. And we start by modeling, let's have a research question, how would we answer it? And, we bring up issues that we think could create our own little dystopias. And one of them we looked at recently was this idea of cell phones and distracted driving. So we went outside in front of the school, and what they were doing was every single driver that drove by, they just had to mark, are they looking up or are they looking down? Because no one looks down when they're driving, unless they're on their phone. No one would do that. It wouldn't make sense. And the numbers were in the 60% to 70% range, depending on the time of the school day. It was really horrifying to realize how many people were totally driving around not looking where they were going. So I do think that there are folks who are, very, so maybe aggressive, persistent, kind of defying traffic, rules and regulations. And then there's this whole other category of folks who are now just really distracted all the time. And it does feel like to a lot of Holyoke residents, so we've talked about the traffic squad. That's why we keep talking about how we're, councils are frustrated that we hear from residents that they don't feel safe, that, my kids, walk home from school, they have to cross at a crosswalk. And I, often walk down to meet them at the crosswalk. And as I'm walking down the hill, I can see the crosswalk. And I remember right at the very beginning of this process, like my daughter's in pre-K, it's a 5-year-old and a 9-year-old, and cars would just whip through the crosswalk. You wouldn't stop for a 5-year-old. I don't even think they noticed. I don't think they were paying attention. So I totally understand the desire to want to keep our kids safe and want to, I think, also help drivers feel a little more accountability, that like people are watching and they're expecting you to be following the rules of the road. My dad's a school bus driver. He just retired last year. He drove for over 20 years. And he's really excited at the idea. He was like, that's cool. I think it makes sense. I really like what school committee member Lubold said about, like, this is the first step. And because this is coming from the joint committee, this is our role as ordinance committee is just to accept the state statute that would allow us to begin this process. And then it moves to the mayor and to the school committee and the superintendent for them to design the program. We're not going to be a part of that decision. Given that, I feel like we've gotten information onto the financial structure, onto the technology. I think we should air here any other questions or concerns we might have. As we decide if I see you. Thank you, Councilor Bacon. Whether or not we're in a place where we feel like we can accept this state statute. I see Councilor Bacon and I see Councilor Panich.
Thank you. I just wanted to thank all the presenters in the committee for the good questions. I don't have any further questions, but I will be supporting a motion, or I'll offer the motion that we recommend the adoption of Chapter 40, Section 71 tonight.
Thank you.
Okay.
Do I hear a second? Yes, and then, but if there's no second, we won't move forward. But if there's a second, then under discussion.
Second them.
Thank you. And then under discussion, we still have Councilor Panich, then Councilor Rivera.
Yeah, and I would have seconded it if I had realized that we could still go on talking. But no, I really at this point I just have a comment, which is that if I understand the financial structure correctly, basically, if we're not catching violations, you're not getting paid. So the fact that the group is so successful shows the magnitude of the problem. And, I too think this is a great solution and happy to support the beginning of the process. Thank you.
I appreciate that.
Yeah, if I may. So, yeah, I also support and believe, like, I've seen it, I've chased them down, kind of, because my daughter rides the little bus, and on my street, on Willow Street, they just drive up and down, and I got out of the middle of the road, like, what are you doing? And they just keep driving. So, like, I get it. I think for me is, and I support it, but one thing got brought up that it's recording all the time. So let's say there's a particular situation that goes down, and it captures it, I'm trying to understand that process. So like if there's a shooting.
This technology and the purpose of our arrival in Holyoke is one purpose only, and that's for the safety of school kids being transported on and off buses. We don't use the technology for any other purpose.
Thank you.
So it couldn't be subpoenaed.
I'm sorry?
Like it couldn't be subpoenaed. It couldn't be like couldn't the state or the FBI, for example, just say like, "Hey, we need this information."
Well, the fact is they'd have to move quickly because it destroys every day. It rewinds. So we don't. It's too expensive, also, to store information. So we don't do that.
Okay.
So we don't look or serve to be a resource for anything other than the purposefulness of our arrival in Holyoke.
Thank you. And I see Councilor Rivera's hand.
One other thing we didn't discuss, which is good about this, Vinnie McKinto or that other program in Holyoke. So let's suppose one of our buses, our students, they go to Holyoke schools, but live in Chicopee or are staying in Chicopee. So because Chicopee has the technology and something were to happen on our bus, it would still be recorded because even though it's out of Holyoke, if I'm correct, right? And you could also speak more on it. It would also, the violation would show up because Chicopee has the technology and it would cover it.
We would be able to eventually work out some sort of joint partnership on those kind of unique moments.
Thank you. Are there any other questions or concerns in the committee? I see Councilor Penich. Thank you.
Yeah, no, I just wanted to point out that the fact that it's erased immediately is a crucial data protection point. I mean, yes, we're going to lose possibly some ability for the police to investigate random incidents, but we need that to be the case for us not to worry about what's happening to all that data. So thank you.
Of course, and as an aside, I'll give you one quick example. I presented in front of the Medford City Council a few months ago. And as luck would have it, one of the leading ACLU attorneys lives in Medford and has a propensity to attend council meetings on a regular basis. So this attorney came up to me and he said, I have 3 points for you to incorporate into the contract in Medford. I said, fine, get them to us. We reviewed them. Our legal team said, no problem whatsoever. So the 3 data points, and I say this purposefully because they're very pointed, and I can make sure that they're implemented in your contract. So they reflect your concerns about data, just like Medford's were.
Thank you.
Excellent. Yeah. Love it. Thank you.
Of course.
Oh, sorry. Yes. School Committee Member Patty Lubold.
Yes, I just wanted to just say, as Mr. Gorman had pointed out, and his company's requirements and ethics in terms of destroying data, but I did want you to know that the Massachusetts state law that you are taking up is also has strict guidelines that data must be destroyed within 30 days of any recording. So I just wanted to just put that out there, that there is that additional, in addition to how Mr. Gorman was describing his company operating.
Thank you. We have a motion on the table, and that has been seconded for us to adopt this section of the state statute. And I'm going to read that one more time into the record. Okay, so the motion is from Councilor Bacon that we would adopt Massachusetts General Law, Chapter 40, Section 71, titled School Bus Violation Detection Monitoring Systems Installation and Operation, and move it to Council with our recommendation for adoption. Is there any further discussion before we vote? Okay. Councilor Bacon?
Yes.
Councilor Talheimer?
Yes.
Councilor Rivera?
Yes.
Councilor Penich?
Yes.
Councilor McGrath-Smith, yes. Thank you very much for coming in, Mr.
Thank you,
Gorman.
everyone.
and Ms. Lubold and also Councilor Rivera to speak to this issue. Very excited.
Thank you.
Is this Linda's order or just says this?
Feel free if you think of something in the middle of the night.
I will try not to call you in the middle of the night, but I appreciate it.
Okay, thanks.
Thank you so much, Mr. Gorman. Okay, we're going to go back to our regularly scheduled programming. If I could have a motion to take up item 3.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
This is us, and also, sorry, a motion for us to open the public hearing for item 3.
Yeah.
Can I have a second?
Second.
All those in favor? Aye. From Israel Rivera, order that the Honorable City Council review the ordinance that establishes the operating timeframes for cannabis dispensaries. This was a public hearing that we continued from March to this meeting in order to create more space for the new Director of Planning and Economic Development to reach out to cannabis companies and to see if there was interest in seeing the timeframes shifted. I want to ask if there is anyone from Cannabis Dispensary who wants to speak to this issue, who is attending tonight. Okay, seeing none. My personal feeling is that this was an order that was put forward. It was asked for because there was a specific company who was considering expanding their hours, and it may just be that it's a stale order. And if that's the case, and no one is here from the public to speak to this issue or against this issue, I wonder if it makes sense for us to close the hearing at the end of this process. I want to, ask the maker of the order if you want to give any thoughts that you have, Councilor Rivera.
I was in communication with, my understanding is that the op-ed director, let me say it correctly, still hasn't been made up to speed because he's still catching up with other projects, and that this one still is on their radar. And then they told me, was communicated to me to see if it could be tabled one more time, to give him some time to be able to get, understand this part of the project, because he's still understanding other things, because obviously it's the transition. But the other piece is one company was going to come in, but I think they were under the impression too as well that the new op-ed director doesn't know enough about it to be able to kind of speak to it and kind of carry forward the project. So I don't know. To my understanding, is like the ask is if it could be tabled one more time, and then after that, it can be.
I received a message from Eric Nakajima, our OPED director, and he said, I sent notices to the retail cannabis shops about the hearing, and I heard from one of them they might show up, otherwise nothing. I also mentioned they could send in written testimony if they couldn't make the hearing. I do think it might make sense to close the hearing if no one shows up.
If he says that, then I guess I'm with it, because I got communicated something else. But if you got that from him, that's where it's at.
Did you hear from a cannabis company that they wanted us to table it? Because if that's the case,
I did hear from one.
I am more than happy to table it.
So
I don't want it to stay on forever and ever if we're not hearing from anybody that really does want us to push this forward.
I fully agree with you on that. And if it was in that this particular cannabis company wasn't informed that this was going to be tabled, or like that the request was that it be tabled, because they were under the impression that the new op-ed director needed more time, they would have been present, because they've been calling me and talking to me and reaching out about this particular order.
Well, if that's the case, I would rather table it, because I don't want to pay. It's a taxpayer, funding piece for me. Like, I don't want to have to end the hearing and then it get refiled, and then we have to pay for noticing all over again.
No. I think tabling it makes more sense, at least one more time, giving them the chance to do that. I wasn't aware of the report that you got from Mr. Nakajima. I wish I kind of would have got that myself. I think there's a piece of it where communication, I don't know, for me, like, I filed the order. If I filed the order, why am I not being communicated regarding?
It was just because I emailed him to ask.
I understand that, but still, like,
Yeah.
The mayors just went through it the other day. For the Frank Marini's guy, and I'm not trying to make none of that, but like, what are we doing here in a sense? Like, I can't vote on a project that I'm like, that just comes to me right now at council, and they're expecting me to vote in that moment. Like, I need to know more. There needs to be more communication, and I know, and I'm not trying to come after him because he's new to that, and this had nothing to do with him from the beginning. I sat down when I filed this order. There was a conversation with the mayor's office and then the then planning director's office, who was Aaron, and obviously he moved on and got another job, and congrats to him on that piece. But like, I think for me, it's having a communication piece between either the people that file the orders or the committees. Yeah. And if you're the chair and you get the communication, that's cool. But I think it's with more time and having that transparency, because then when constituents reach out, or the business who's reaching out to me, who they're the ones that are kind of like hoping this can happen, they're communicating one thing, and I come here and I hear another one. I'm sitting here like, okay, maybe I don't know what's happening. And I filed the order, right? Like, but
Well, we could continue the hearing, and we could move it to like June 11th. Like, we could create more space in order to create, time for communication.
No, I appreciate that. And to be honest, like, again, this is something that was brought to me from the then op-ed director and a business that's thinking about trying to find other opportunities to be able to get niches in the market.
I see Councillor Panich has a question or comment.
Just for what it's worth, I want to second everything that Councillor Rivera just said, and this was the sort of thing that I kind of hoped that retreat was going to be about. Mm-hmm. Figuring out this kind of process, because it's a problem, and I think everyone is doing the best they can, and we're getting things wrong.
Yeah.
But if there's a date to continue, I would move to continue to that date certain.
Second.
Are there any other members of the public who want to speak on this issue before we continue it? Okay, hearing none. The motion has been made to continue it to a date certain. That date certain would be June 11th at 6:30 p.m. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Oh, nope. I'm going to revise my order on that one. Hold on. Nope, it's the right date. Sorry. I psyched myself out looking at it. The calendar looked like it was a Saturday. And I was like, that's not when we're meeting. No, the 11th is correct. Okay. All right. Let's move on to item 4.
Madam Chair?
Yes.
Can I interrupt just for a minute?
Yes, Councilor Devine.
If you could take up item 7,
Sure.
It's over in 2 seconds.
I have information on that too, from
okay.
Kelly and from John.
Yep.
Okay. All right.
Motion to go out of order and take up item 7.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
This is from Divine, ordered that the Charter Rules Committee, Law Department, and Parks and Rec Department check if wording in the appropriate charter section can be changed so that city lifeguards can be given raises. Councilor Divine, do you want to give us your framing for this? And then I have some info to share.
I was given erroneous information. The lifeguards have had raises. I was told they've never had them. Mm-hmm. So to say I was a little mad when I heard this, they have had them. They didn't have one last year, but they're going to get one this year. So we can give that leave to withdraw.
Thank you. Yes, I think it makes sense to do so. Although I do want to share some information earlier that was shared because I just think it makes sense. Okay, sorry, I'm just pulling it up. Okay, so Mr. Moquin, who's the Parks and Recs director, wanted to share information to the committee. That he said, I'm not against pay raises at all, but I do feel like we already have lifeguard staff coming back, and I haven't heard any direct comments from me about unfair rates. I'm not saying I'm against it, but I do believe that we have a fair rate. We have talked about moving it from $18 an hour to $19, which feels very competitive, and our top 2 guards will be at 21. Personally, I'm very comfortable at the starting rate of 19, and I don't believe it needs to be changed. And then Ms. Curran, our HR director, also looked at the comparable rates and also what it says under ordinance. So ordinance, the pay range for lifeguards goes from 15 up to 21.50. And she said in the future, it may be that, next year or the year after, the range needs to be expanded at the top for the folks who are the head lifeguards. But right now, them moving up to 21, there's still like even a 50 cents raise possibility for next year for that top salary range. But that everything else seems like it's still very much, and is for this year is very comfortably within the range. And they talked about how the pay lifeguard rates were increased 2 years ago. And I do remember that. She also looked at what the rates are regionally and found that we were very competitive. Everyone around us was around the same amount. And she looked at Chicopee, West Springfield. So West Springfield is $17 an hour. Chicopee is $19. Westfield is $17.32. Springfield's a range from $16.94 to $19.50. Massachusetts DCR lifeguards earn competitive hourly rates ranging from 22 to 27, depending on their position and certification. So they looked at that and said they feel like we're very much in range for where we should be.
Motion, we give this leave to withdraw with permission of the maker of the order.
Thank you.
Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
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 Okay. Thank you, Councilor Devine.
Thanks.
Okay. Let's move to take up item 4 and reopen the public hearing.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. This public hearing says ordered that we amend our zoning ordinances in order to require a certain percentage of native plantings in new construction or major rehabilitation projects and to bring ourselves into alignment with Massachusetts prohibited plant list and banning their use. And we had initially continued this from March 24th to tonight. And I wanted to name that the planning board opened up their hearing on this tonight, and they discussed it, and they've continued it to May 26th, and they will be doing research in the meantime, taking it up. They may feel like they're ready at that point to vote and send us information back. But I think it makes sense maybe for us to talk about it just briefly, and then we'll continue the hearing to June to give them time to do what they need to do, because it's a zoning change. One thing that I wanted to share, Jeffrey, do you have the link that I sent you earlier?
Sure, I'll get it open right away.
Thank you. Okay, so just a really brief description here. So effectively, when we're talking about asking us to add native plantings, I was just wanting to briefly describe what was sort of meant by that, or the purpose behind that. So we know that native plants are essential to the food web. So Doug Tallamy is a really well-known ecological gardener, and his books are great. And his core argument is that native plants directly support biodiversity because they host the insects that power our entire ecosystem. So we know that most native caterpillars can only survive on native plants, for example. And then caterpillars are the primary food source for birds. So you may have a yard or a business that looks like it's lush with all this green, but if it's grass and all plants that originate from Asia, it's very likely that there's not a single plant in your yard that can be used by any creature in this region. And so as a result, they become these sort of green ecological dead zones. It's like a desert to someone who's a butterfly or to a bug that's going to be eaten by a bird, right? And because we've already removed the majority of native habitat through development, private and developed land is key to us being able to make a change to support our pollinators and wildlife. So requiring a percentage of native plantings in new or major restoration projects ensures that every new project contributes to helping us rebuild habitat. So Tallamy calls this creating a homegrown national park. The idea that we have to effectively bring the national park to our own cities and towns, that nature can't be something out there. It has to be something that we are coexisting and living with, that's right alongside us. So what's up on the screen is an example of commercial landscaping where they've used native plants. And the benefit to a lot of these is that they're drought resistant. They require way less water, which is a really good thing when we know Massachusetts has been really struggling with drought the last couple of years and really just messy rainfall, right? Times where we get a lot of water, times where we get almost no water. And native plants are good for stormwater management as well as when you're in drought, not needing to irrigate them. And they benefit nature, right? They support birds, they support pollinators. The idea is to ask the planning board what they're doing with their process to consider this. And if there's a percentage that we should be asking. So if we right now I know they're looking at landscaping in general in the planning board. If we're going to have some requirements and criteria around when someone is building a building and they want to put a bank down, and they're going to put in a whole site review plan around parking and egresses and the flow of cars in and out of the lot. One of the other criteria points should be, are you going to plant trees? Are you going to plant plants? Is there going to be greenery by the road, right? How is this going to impact our community in terms of its walkability, how it looks, how it feels? And that native plantings should be a part of that conversation. If you want to click on that link, Jeff, that's down below, I just wanted to share this resource because it's cool for folks who are potentially, you are the person who is building that bank and you're trying to figure out, well, what could I plant? Mass.gov now has this website where you can literally go in and say like, okay, I'm looking for plants that are X high inches and also are this color and bloom in the fall. And I want a mix of plants. I also want some in the spring and some in the summer. I want it to be really varied and always something pretty is blooming. You would literally go into this, you click start, you put in what you want and what colors you're interested in, and then it gives you what you could plant. It's a really neat resource. So I wanted to share that because I think it's something that folks might be interested in as homeowners, as well as folks who are interested commercially. If they're like, I don't know where to start. Right, there's a really good resource right here that's free that folks can go in and say what they want, and it will give them a planting plan around the kind of plants that are going to work for what they're trying to do. Okay, are there any other thoughts or questions? We have to continue this in order to let the planning board do what they need to do.
Great resource. When do you want to continue to?
That's a good question. I think we should continue to June 11th to give the planning board time for them to look at their landscaping requirements and how they may want to build this into their site review process.
Yeah, been looking for design standards for 20 years now.
Mm-hmm. Well, it'd be a good thing to have them.
Yeah, this is not terrible.
All right, so if there's anyone from the public that wants to speak, because it is a public hearing, just wanted to name that anyone from the public can speak. Hearing none, we'll make a motion to continue the public hearing to June 11th at 6:30.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
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 Okay. Thank you.
Motion to take up item 5?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay. This is ordered that the ordinance committee revise section 74-98 of our ordinances concerning private property and vegetation to balance the need for public health and safety with emergent gardening practices focused on ecological stewardship. Revise the current language to create clarity concerning exemptions or alternative compliance measures for properties dedicated to native landscaping, pollinator habitats, or organic gardening practices. And I'm going to click through really quickly to look at the packet that Jeff has made us for 5. Jeff, do you have the link for this draft? Because earlier today, Tim Rivers went in and added to it at the bottom a revised draft that he wanted us to look at. If not,
Let me take a look for it.
okay, I can send you the link too if you need it. Okay, so this is us considering what we want to do with our yard ordinance. The original ordinance reads, "The owner or person in control of any private property shall at all times maintain his premises, as well as the sidewalk in front of his premises, free of litter, so the same does not constitute a danger to the public health, safety, or welfare. The owner or person in control of any private property shall maintain and cut all vegetation to a maximum of 6 inches, which constitutes a rodent harborage area or a public health hazard. The section shall not prohibit the storage of litter in authorized private receptacles for collection." And we last time had started to look at a potential draft that Tim Rivers had gone into and had left comments and ideas. And then he went into the original document and ended up, when I talked to him today, I realized he had added at the end of it. I'm going to find that quickly for you, Jeff. I can send it to you. One of the things that Councilor Penich had brought up last meeting was that we didn't really have definitions, or we had them elsewhere, but not in this section. And so he attempted to draft definitions I think we should look at. Thank you, Councilor Devine, for joining us. I wanted to thank Councilor Mason, that's also on Zoom too, and Councilor Murphy-Ramboletti. Okay, Jeff, I sent the link. Okay. His definitions that he's suggesting are as followed. That pest means any insect, rodent, bird, or other animal of public health significance that infests, contaminates, damages, or occupies structures, food, property, or environments in a manner that creates a nuisance or a health hazard. A pest harborage area means any location, condition, or structural feature that provides shelter, concealment, or a protected nesting site for pests, whether temporary or permanent, including cracks, voids, clutter, vegetation overgrowth, debris, or improperly maintained property. No, so like Jeff just sent this, is putting it up top.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, so that you have it. Here. I'm also sending you.
Is this the right one? Because I'm not sure this is what you just read.
If you go down below, do you see where he's added to it? No. Jeff, did you see the link that I sent you?
Yeah, this was clicking off of the link you just sent me.
Oh,
That's what I have on my phone.
that's bizarre. Sorry, Jeff. I wonder if there would be a reason why I can see it, but you can't. I'm going to send you a new copy of the link, Jeff. See if this one works. It's also the one that I just sent to the committee by email. In Mr. Rivers's draft, I think the biggest question for me is how to get it right in terms of what the definitions are. I really like his definition of a pest because it's clear that it's not just an animal or insect or rodent or bird, but one that infests, contaminates, damages, or occupies structures in a manner that creates a nuisance or a health hazard. That makes sense to me, and it was a way of defining a pest. But I do wonder, so like then in the pest harborage area, it names vegetation overgrowth as one of the things that could be causing it. And maybe it's okay. Maybe there is just a little bit of contradiction there in terms of vegetation overgrowth can be just blight. It can be, I'm not paying attention. I'm just letting this stuff free grow. It's mixed in with trash, debris. It's not being cared for. It's being neglected. And thus it's becoming like a rodent harborage. Versus what it means to have a managed landscape, right? And what we're defining that as here in this revised ordinance is an area that's intentionally planted or maintained and not the result of neglect. An area that doesn't exceed 50% of the front yard and is reasonably maintained, including defined edges, borders, or pathways, the absence of litter or debris, and the control of invasive species. Councillor Panich, then Councillor Rivera.
Yeah, I think this may be over-inclusive in terms of what we're trying to accomplish here. It is consistent with definitions that I found when I started doing research, but I look around at various yards, and I think that probably a certain amount of thinking has changed over the years because this is a recipe for sterilization. And if what we want is an ecosystem where naturally things are preying on other things, and naturally we have insects, and naturally we have the 10,000 rabbits in my yard, which I would be very happy if a fox came and took, but I wonder if we want to leave a definition that is so expansive that it could cover any of this as pest harborage. And if we want manicured golf lawns, that's one thing. If we don't, then maybe what we want to just talk about is vegetation and grass. And I have received communications from constituents who seem happy with the idea of native gardens and pollinator gardens, but would like to see the grass mowed to 6 inches, thank you very much. And maybe this is, even though it started off as a public health ordinance, maybe what we want is a landscaping ordinance and to prioritize that. And this is just a thought because I'm seeing it right now. It is obviously not the product of any forethought.
We have Councillor Rivera and then Councillor Thalheimer.
Yeah, I think for me it's there's what we're trying to do. Like, there's no easier way for me to say it. Like, it is going to be pest harborage. Like, just like you have tall grass. If you have tall grass, the little mice are going to be able to hide easier in that from prey. The insects are going to be able to hide easier, whether you have trash in it or not. Like, it doesn't matter whether you maintain it or you keep it a nice landscape or whatnot. There's going to be pest harborage. So, like, if that's what we're going to do, then you got to understand that there's going to be that contradiction that on the one hand, we want to maintain public health, but public health views certain practices as, I don't want to say like as a bad practice, and as a preventative practice with regards to preventing disease and the spread of whatever it is or whatnot. And for them, the easiest way to mitigate that situation is to say, keep that's pest harborage. You know what I'm saying? That it's pest harborage. And that is their role to say it in a sense, right? Because they're educating us on public health. They got to advocate and do that piece too, while at the same time trying to balance the goal that we're trying to accomplish. So I fully get that. And I think that it might be okay for us to recognize that if we get to that point, like just saying that you got to live with that if that's what we're trying to do. But I think for me, I'm cool with like, it just becomes difficult to police whether or not someone's actually intentionally trying to grow, like, a pollinator garden or whatnot in front of it. And to me, I'll be honest with you, it got nothing to do with me. It's not my property. That's how I think. Not everybody feels the same way. I've gotten similar emails where, like, people like the planting and all this stuff, but at the same time, they want to make sure people are cutting their grass because it's not fair to them that I maintain my property and the person next to me uses this as an excuse to not maintain their property. So for me, it's like, how do I balance something that would be good for us as Holyoke and as a community with regards to environmental and protecting that, but at the same time, it's like the bunnies are eating my tulips.
Plant daffodils.
They're eating my tulips. They're eating all my stuff, man. What do I do? No.
Councilor Thalheimer?
I'm inclined to agree. I mean, I think we all got that email from constituents very concerned about the 6-inch grass limit. But yeah, that is the question. Like, what is the discernment between this is an intentionally created space and this is someone not maintaining their lawn? And between the two, there is the rabbits eating the tulips, the squirrels eating the whatever, all those elements. Those are real and actual concerns that are, we have neighbors in close quarters. How do we address this? So, thanks.
I wanted to name that underneath the new language that Tim Rivers is asking us to consider. And I think there's a reason why this is in the in a public health ordinance, and I think because effectively, while there is just homeownership pride, we want yards that look cared for and maintained, yards that are just examples of blight are also areas where we then see public health crises begin. And so it makes sense for these two to be connected for me. The language that he suggested is that it says vegetation management. Vegetation that's not exempt from this ordinance must be, vegetation that is not exempt from this ordinance, maintained or exceeds a height of 6 inches, may be deemed a public health nuisance by the Board of Health or its designated agents. And then it has the exemptions, right? Notwithstanding the above, property owners may establish and maintain managed pollinator habitats, native plant gardens, or naturalized landscapes, including within front yards, provided that such areas are intentionally planted or maintained and not the result of neglect, that the area does not exceed 50% of the front yard, that the area is reasonably maintained, including defined edges, borders, or pathways, an absence of litter debris, and the control of invasive species. And it says enforcement. It is the duty of the Board of Health or its designated agents to inspect and determine violations of this ordinance. The enforcing authority may consider evidence of intentional cultivation, including planting plans, visible maintenance, or designation as a pollinator habitat, in determining compliance. At any time, the Board of Health may in writing determine that this exemption shall be repealed due to a threat to public health for the occupants, neighbors, or the general public. I do think that line, I think we have to decide if we would be comfortable with that. Because effectively what it's saying is someone could have a naturalized space and be told, you have to just get rid of it. You have to cut it down, right? It's caused issues, right? And I will say, I think it depends too on how dense people are to each other. In my yard, in my backyard, we don't have grass. We just have plants and pathways. I've not had any issues with pests in my yard. I have a lot of birds. They eat a lot of things in my yard. So there's that. And there's other folks who are like, I don't have a yard, or my yard feels like a postage stamp right next to someone else's postage stamp. I will say there are communities around us where there's also a lot more density of housing, where there really are, if you drive by, they do have naturalized gardens in their front yards, which are like catmint and coneflower. You know what I mean? These are, native garden stuff is tall. There's not a lot of grass there. And we don't require someone to have grass if you have a garden. And there's a lot of folks who have front yards that are almost entirely gardens, and this effectively names this into our ordinance. That if this is a planned and maintained space, then you're allowed to do it.
But what about that 50% thing?
Yep. Yeah, it's a good question. I think that was the original suggestion, that we consider like 50% of your front lawn. The thought being that like you should have grass, or some parts of it should simply be paths, should be things that look clearly maintained and cared for. But maybe that's the wrong way to go.
Yeah, no, I was questioning it because, you're talking about people whose front yards are mostly garden.
Mm-hmm.
And now we're going to ask them to rip their gardens out and put 50% grass?
Yeah, I don't want to do that.
You don't want to do that.
Okay.
My next door neighbors don't want to do that.
Yeah, they have a beautiful garden. I mean, to the extent to which it was on the garden tour last year.
Yeah.
Right. I see Councillor Vacan's hand up, and then Councillor Murphy-Ramboletti.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I just wanted to make a general comment that I appreciated the intention of this draft to try to strike the balance between something that is planned and something that is clearly uncontained overgrowth and definitely a pest harbor, because I think we've all seen those and we know what it is when we see it.
Mm-hmm.
And maybe we could talk about the 50%, but certainly when it is a majority of the front yard and it's just total overgrowth, it's, I think, where we have had our public health department have to deal with it, So I appreciate what he's trying to do to try to differentiate between something that is intentional and something that is just neglect. Mm-hmm. But I did agree on his item 2 under vegetation management that you really can't enforce I understand where he's coming from about enforcing a planting, because it happens a lot of time, particularly with trees, where the branches just grow into the other yard. You can't plant it within their yard or on their line, but the branches themselves will encroach. So I could understand how he was saying that wouldn't be enforceable on that particular point. Thank you.
Absolutely. Councillor Murphy-Ramboletti, and then Councillor Rivera.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I was just literally going to say the same thing that Councillor Vacan was talking about related to the enforcement of the vegetation management. I guess I'm always just wary of, creating laws and ordinances that are hard or unrealistic to enforce. And I think that's just kind of, I worry that, it's the Board of Health that would be determining that correctly, that something, they'd be making the determination between something that is overgrown and, not intentional versus an intentional pollinator habitat. But I don't know how this gets enforced totally, and I feel like if this came to council, like next meeting, I wouldn't feel totally ready to vote on it. So I just felt like saying that, but I get the intent. I like the intent. I understand it. And I agree with a lot of the comments made this evening. So thank you.
Thank you. Councilor Rivera?
I think my only question was regarding this particular piece can't people just apply to be able to grow a garden like that? So that way you can actually police it easier?
I asked Mr. Rivers if that made sense.
That would make more sense.
He was like, please don't do that. Because from their perspective, these yards, in most people's yards, are small, right? From his perspective, this would put such a burden on the Board of Health to have to go around and check properties ahead of time and
But-
give people,
So I guess,
you know,
so-
the check off and the special permit process. Like, he was like, please don't do that. There's so many of these houses that are already non-compliant. Let's just make sure that we're creating an ordinance that just brings more properties into compliance and makes things clear and creates an enforcement structure where I have enough flexibility to respond where I need to.
so I guess for me, it's like, so then how would you be able to create an enforcement structure when you don't even know who's doing it on purpose and who's not? Like, if you don't know who's doing it on purpose and who's not, like, now you are up to that point where you have to send the Board of Health inspector over, and they're going to ask those questions. Oh, are you maintaining it? Are you doing this? Are you doing that? Because you have overgrowth, and we just want to make sure that you're actually, so that for me is like, I would think it's like, oh, okay, 25 Willow Street, they have the overgrowth. Someone called that their grass is taller than 6 inches. Oh, let me check. 25 Willow Street, well, they have the thing. Let me call and make sure they're okay. I get the piece of having to do what the, what do we call it? Disabilities Commission does, where they have to go out, check the site, make sure that it's okay and suitable. But if we're just going to allow it outright, in a sense, what it sounds like here, what would be the difference if you're allowing someone with a permit to just come in and get the permit? Like, you don't necessarily have to go in and do all that if we're not doing it now. Like, if we're going to do it this way.
I think the difference is if you allow it by right, and then if there is a problem, their neighbor will reach out. And then that becomes an enforcement that the Board of Health gets to have the professional responsibility and discretion to handle. And so that's why I think he's suggesting this enforcement section that says, like, the BOH is determining the violations, and they can consider evidence of, his language is intentional cultivation, including planting plans, visible maintenance, designation as a pollinator habitat, and determining compliance. But at any time, the Board of Health may determine that this exemption shall be repealed due to a threat to public health for the occupants, neighbors, the general public. So if there is an issue, they can still intervene.
No, I get that piece. I just think that for me, it's like anybody can just grow their grass out throughout the city, and now they gotta literally drive in their cars and police whose grass is growing, and they don't know who's who, like who's doing it intentionally and who's not. And that for me is kind of like a little bit more complex and harder to enforce. Doesn't make sense to, not that it doesn't make sense, it makes sense. It's just like, it's not feasible with the capacity that we have at the moment. At least my understanding is, but I guess that makes sense. So whatever. Yeah, thank you.
Councilor Penich?
Yeah. Well, two things. First is that, I think the problem with permitting is, where do you draw the line? Does my rose garden need a permit? How about my raspberries, which some years threaten to take over the universe, and then I have to cut them back the next year? It's like, what's the difference between that and a native garden? And the other thing is that the concern about grass seems to be specifically about turf grass. And some of the references that we saw earlier do talk about grasses that can be used as turf grass that are not the classic, like, golf course grass. But when grass is just overgrowing. And it doesn't look like, maybe there's some people who, bees love dandelions. I can imagine somebody letting their lawn go completely to dandelions deliberately. But then you have something that does look like a garden. And if you are doing it deliberately and you build a path through it, it's clear that it's a garden. And, I worry about taking up the entire Board of Health's time with every single person in the city who has any yard whatsoever suddenly needs a permit to grow whatever they're growing.
And I do want to name that grass is, in almost every case, the way that we use grass, not a native plant. So letting your grass grow, that's not a native pollinator space. That's overgrown grass.
Who planted the grass though? Like if you didn't intentionally grab the grass, That's
I
in my
think we
house.
all know
I didn't
grass
plant-
is not supposed to
I
be
didn't-
here
but I'm
because if
saying
you
though,
don't
I didn't
maintain it a
plant-
lot, it takes so much
I didn't
effort,
plant the
right?
grass.
Otherwise,
Come on.
it goes away quickly. Other things immediately start coming in. And clearly, a lot of those now are invasives, but some of them are not. Yes.
No, but just to get back to the other point with regards to, so if we're doing a permit, then what you're suggesting, or you're saying that if we do a permit for native, or for this particular thing that we're trying to restructure ordinance to make allowable, then we'd have to do that for all other plants as well?
Yeah, I don't see where you would draw the line.
Okay, that makes sense then. Okay.
Okay, I feel like we've had a good conversation, and I feel like it makes sense to table so we can continue to sit with the language. And then we'll bring this conversation up again in the future when we feel like we've gotten the chance to check in with constituents, we've sat and thought about it more, and decided if we're ready to then come up with a different draft.
Motion to table?
Yes, please.
Second that.
All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
All right, we have items 6, 8, and 10, 11 left. We're gonna be thoughtful about 6, it'll be short. Motion to take up item 6.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Item 6, order that DPW Director, Parks Director, and Conservation Director come into a subcommittee meeting to discuss the management strategies currently being used to encourage pollinators. Are we regularly using pesticides on city parks or city land? If so, which ones? Do we have any no-mow areas put aside on city land as pollinator spaces? Are we currently planting native plants in any city parks and medians? Last time we took this up, we sort of discussed that it's not that they were against the idea of this, but that they really were not actively adding native plants into any of our parks or medians currently. And that there were no no-mow areas, although they were open to the idea of either having pollinator gardens or no-mow areas in different spaces. We do have Mr. Gallagher online with us if you want to add anything, or if we can ask questions of you. And then we also got a communication from Mr. Moquin, which was filed under 5, but is actually for 6. And he had sent a suggestion that a good space for a pollinator garden might be Sheard Park, next to Resnick Boulevard and Jackson Street, in between there. And he had provided a map of that area and also of Jones Point Park, thinking that those might be 2 areas where DPW and Parks could potentially work together with folks from, for example, the Senior Center Garden Club and the Western Mass Gardeners Club in order to establish some different kinds of spaces in the city. I see Councilor Thalheimer.
I did want to add that Councilor Rivera and I did recently file an order for something like this similarly at Laurel Park, which we would, I mean, I can't speak for my colleague, but I would like to see happen. So
cool. Yes, Councilor Rivera.
Yes. First, I'd like to thank the Parks and Recs director for kind of taking the initiative too, to try to identify different spaces that make sense. The one that he highlighted, I believe, which is across the street from the Pouliot Pool, that big park, right? It would totally make sense to do something like that.
I just went there to check it out ahead of time.
Right, it's a huge
and it's so much
space
larger
that's
than
not
you
really
think.
utilized,
Yeah.
and the only people that utilize it, I have to say, is the elderly community at the Holyoke Housing Authority building that's right across the street, and some of the unhoused population do as well, which they're welcome to use it. It's a public space. But I think that there's so much that could be added to that, just with the pollinator garden and stuff like that. Then just to speak to where we're at, the garden, so I guess I might have to understand what the exact definition of what a pollinator garden is, but what we filed the order for is to encourage that in the space at Laurel Street Park, that this one, I don't know if the guy is still around, but he used to maintain the garden there. I think his last name was Shimura. And he hasn't done so probably like in 2 years or 3 years or so. And it's just been growth with the plants that are there. So for me, it's like, then if we're doing the pollinator stuff, let's just keep that process, right? Don't assign anybody to maintain the plants that are there and just let it grow as they have been for the last 2 or 3 years. Although I will say there is like a couple trees growing too close to the sidewalk that's there. So if parks can, or the maintenance can look at that and make sure that those trees don't actually grow into real trees, that'll destroy the fountain area.
Yeah.
But like aside from that, to me, it's like that would be an easy startup that's already kind of in the process. And thank you again.
I think one of my questions, and maybe Mr. Gallagher could speak to this, is sort of what training DPW workers would need in order to be able to manage. We have a number of parks like this where maybe there was effectively just a volunteer who was really owning it for a really long time. This was true at Jones Point Park too. The entire area that was around the kids' playground space was, and has been up until very recently, and in many ways still is being handled by neighbors. And so what does it look like, where folks are, not able to continue doing that high degree of volunteerism for DPW workers to have the training or capacity to help with those areas? I don't know if you want to speak to that, Mr. Gallagher.
The training might not be too big a deal. I don't know if it would rise to the level of like a horticulturist or anything like that, if I've got the terminology correct. But the capacity might be the biggest problem if we have too many of these things. But I did a little bit of research, and it doesn't seem like these things have to be that big, and a lot of it, some of it encourages not clearing too much of the debris out of them, because the dead debris in them ends up being nesting areas for bees when they hibernate over the winter for the nesting. And it looks like a good standard size, recommended size is about a 10-foot by 10-foot area. So and I think like if one of those is put, like Jones Point Park was brought up, and when I was speaking with Mr. Moakland today, I was recommending like it would be to put it along the edge of the wooded area, just to help keep it out of the way, so that it's not something that you have to worry about a lot of people trampling over or intermingling with on these parks that are very active with sports.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I know that. So I walked Sheard Park, Sheard? With Sharon Farmer, who is a member of the Western Mass Gardeners Club, or Master Gardeners, and she gave me some information that was interesting to me. And she was like, "Yeah, you're right. It can be a 10 by 10. It could be 20 by 20. It needs to be a large enough area that it really, sort of takes on this idea of sort of a wildflower meadow." The one thing that was new information for me, which is good for us as we're thinking realistically about what we can and can't do, is that the first thing that you have to do is eliminate the grass. And that's not a small feat, right, to get rid of grass, because it's going to require either tarping over for a couple months to kill it off, or using effectively, like rototilling the ground and like removing like the top 8 inches where all the grass is and the roots are, and then like putting down seed, putting down some soil over it in order to create the field originally. So there can be like this upfront labor to establishing one. The other thing that they suggest is putting edging around it. And I don't exactly have the right terminology, but they said they were like these almost like kick plates that are like thin edging. It goes underground, and it's like 6 to 8 inches deep, so that you're just pushing it down so that there is this border between existing grass, for example, in a sports field, and this, like no-mow wildflower garden that you grow. And once you have the upfront like work done of getting rid of the grass and creating that edge there, then the grass can't move over and just like kill it off really quickly, because grass can be so strong that it can kind of move in really quickly, whereas like the flowers need to like establish themselves. Like they need to have a year or two to put down some roots before they're going to just be like walloped by grass trying to come back in. And so they suggested that we think about like the upfront like labor and who can help with that labor, whether it's DPW. I mean, they were like volunteers can like very much help with a lot of the work around like putting down seed, getting it to originally grow, that piece. But that first upfront labor around getting rid of the grass is the hardest thing. Yes, Councilor Rivera?
Yeah, I think just to speak to the awareness of like it being like a pollinator garden. I visit every year or so for years. We go to Indiana for a family reunion, and in the park that we hold a family softball tournament, there's an area or a space that's similar to McMahon School. In McMahon School, in the field they have, there's an area that's kind of like a wetlandish area, and in the spring or summertime it overgrows. Like the city doesn't cut the grass and it goes really tall or whatnot. So in Indiana, where I see it, it's a intentional pollen. I'm not sure they took those steps. They probably did with regards to the sophisticatedness of growing the garden and making sure that the grass doesn't overgrow. But like just going over to it and me walking up and saying, why nobody cuts this grass here? And then I look, there's a sign that says pollinator garden, do not touch. Like, I think with that alone was enough for everyone at that park. There's probably like over 100 to 200 people there to like even walk near the park at that. Plus, there's this fear of you're going to get ticks. Like the grass is mad high. There's all these insects and bugs that you could probably come, like this is stigma that's attached to some of that, that keeps people naturally away from it. I think for me, like if you were to see this at like that park over Sheared Park, it would make sense to have it like in the middle of the park where people can walk around it, sit around it, enjoy it, experience it. I think for me, it's more about, from my understanding, it's the more manpower or labor goes into what you pretty much just described, which is the beginning stages. After that, it's just leave it alone, don't touch it. And that for us, I feel like could be an easy lift with regards to what we do in capacity wise. But I think just to speak in general, I think it makes sense for us to kind of find a way to move in this direction and kind of try to help DPW and Parks and Recs. Maybe even if it means that we try to put together like a volunteer crew, as you mentioned, to kind of get some of this together. There's already a wave of that happening already around gardening and planting throughout the city. So it might make sense to kind of like put together a committee or try to jump on that wave if this is the direction that we decide to move in. Just kind of wanted to mention that. Thank you.
Mr. Gallagher, what are you thinking about sort of the like potential labor needed to launch one of these in the city?
Well, as far as the rototilling goes, I don't think that would be too difficult of a task to handle. The specific designation point, I think ultimately would end up resting with the Parks Commission. Like the DPW would be responsible for doing the work, but installing something like a pollinator garden, I think that ultimately is the decision of the Parks Commission. It would end up having to go from them because the DPW's rented out rototillers. Our parks crew has rototilling equipment. That starting off with doing one somewhere and seeing how it goes, that shouldn't be that big of a deal. The ongoing maintenance of one of those, that could be more of an issue though.
Yeah, and I think, you know, to Councilor Rivera's point, there's a number of folks that I think if we're pulling groups into the initial creation of them into, like, the shared parks not that far away from the Boys and Girls Club.
Not that far away from the senior center or from Holyoke Housing Authority.
That's true.
The building, so we could do a collaboration with them. But there's also the point when we're talking like this, like if we're saying Kelly School is a good example, right? The park over there, and I play softball over there, so I don't want you to take any of my diamond or any of my outfields because you guys have already done some of that. But at the end of the day, like if you want to take a section over there in the corner somewhere at Kelly School and do some of that, it would be nice to have a project with the kindergartners to fifth grade to do some of that and do some of that work and understand what it is to plant and do that. So like trying to instill it where we can and collaborate with certain people. The Boys and Girls Club can do something like that at one of their own properties.
Right.
They do have satellite units and different, I think they got one in Bowden Village, Jackson Parkway, well not Jackson Parkway, what's it called now? Churchill? Is that what it is? Yeah, I think so. And then there's one in Tefford Apartments too as well, where they can do some of this stuff. And for me, it's like when we're talking about this, bringing in the collaborations, neighbor to neighbors, doing stuff like that.
Nueces Raíces.
Nueces Raíces. There's a variety of different people that are doing this kind of work. It's just trying to tap into that. And again, I think capacity wise, once it's already up and running, it's just making sure nobody touches it. Because it maintains itself. It grows by itself. It runs on the water from the sun, from the planet. You know, like in the beginning, it might need that boost so that it can start up and keep going. But once that's up and running, the maintenance is just making sure no one's touching it. That's, I think, is the main important part.
Does it make sense to table this as we're just continuing to see where this goes next? Or does it make sense to mark it as complied with because the conversation has occurred and now the wheels have to turn elsewhere? And the question, I guess, is does the committee want this to, return to them and we give it a couple months out and then we bring it back up in order to hear progress made? Or do we want to mark this as complied with at the level of conversation?
I think it's probably, may I?
Yeah.
Complied with, because the way the order is written is ordered that these folks come into a subcommittee to discuss the management. We have done that. I think we have answers to some of these questions. So that feels like a complied with to me.
I see Mr. Gallagher's hands up.
Yes, one thought I have on it is, would it make sense to bring this back up once you resolve the issue of what type of ordinance you'd have allowing private property owners to have the pollinator gardens? I'm not 100% sure, but I think the city loosely sticks to some of the same laws.
Mm-hmm. Okay, I hear what you're saying around, like, are we going to be okay with having no more areas when we're also still talking about private properties too, in terms of the 6-inch rule and all of that? Councilor Rivera, I see you.
I'll second the motion that it's complied.
Okay, thank you. Under discussion, Councilor Rivera.
Yes, thank you for pointing that out, Mr. Gallagher, that it does make sense to take that into consideration. But I think the other order that Councilor McGrath-Smith filed, I think, around the pesticide stuff, I think we as a city are taking a different stance than private property owners can, right? Like we hold ourselves to a different standard.
You mean the SCARS one?
The SCARS one, right?
Yeah, city property, not private.
Right, and I think that in this situation, I would try to err on the same side, like being a leader of example of like what we want to see and what we would like to see. I would also feel like this is complied with, but I'm also interested in figuring out what would be a next step. Like I don't want it just to be in limbo.
But we could file an order.
I was going to say,
and say in 3 months we'll bring it back up just to hear an update.
Or just with an order saying update with a potential pilot program or something like that. Like, what is it going to look like if you're doing that? Because if I'm okay with complied with, but I wouldn't want it to just be in limbo. Or, I mean, I appreciate again Director Mulquin and Director Gallagher to want to take the initiative and just trying to identify different spaces or where it would work. But like, I would just like a check-in back would make sense. So yeah, I'd be willing to join with anyone on filing an order to do that kind of stuff.
Sounds good to me. All right, so we have a motion on the table for us to mark this as complied with. It's been seconded. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Okay, with that, we have marked that as complied with, and Mr. Rivera is doing calisthenics in chambers because it is 9:15.
And we've
Yes.
been in meetings since 6.
Since 6. Yep, we're cranking through. We're doing it. Okay, motion we take item 8 off the table, and thank you, Mr. Gallagher, for attending. Really appreciate you, and I'm sorry it's so late. Do I have a second for 8?
Second that.
All those in favor? Aye. Okay. Mrs. McGrath-Smith ordered that section 5418 on removal of shopping carts be revised to add that establishments who employ shopping carts must ensure that a locking wheel system is used and that businesses have a responsibility to maintain them and handle removal of carts. Review and revise the existing enforcement structure for carts found off property. So you have a draft of this in your packet. Okay, just a quick read through this because it's new for all of us. This would be underneath, we have a shopping carts ordinance, and this would revise it. So definitions, it defines a shopping cart as any basket mounted on wheels or similar device provided by a retail establishment for customer use in transporting goods. And it says cart containment required. All establishments that provide shopping carts for customer use shall implement and maintain a cart containment system designed to prevent removal of carts from the premises. Such systems shall include, but are not limited to, electronic or mechanical locking wheel technology or other equivalent measures approved by the Director of Public Works. 3, maintenance and responsibility. A, each establishment shall be responsible for the proper maintenance and operation of all shopping carts and any containment systems. B, establishments shall take reasonable steps to ensure carts remain on site and are promptly retrieved when removed. 4, retrieval of off-premises carts. A, any establishment whose shopping carts are found off the premises shall be responsible for their retrieval within a reasonable time frame, not to exceed 24 hours from notification by the city. B, establishments shall provide contact information to the city for purposes of notification and retrieval coordination. Enforcement. Failure to remove carts within 24 hours notification shall result in a written warning for a first violation each calendar year. Subsequent violations in a single calendar year shall result in fines as follows. Second violation, $50 per cart. Third and subsequent violations, $75 per cart. Each uncollected cart and each day of noncompliance may constitute a separate violation. The city may take action to remove and store or remove and return uncollected carts left off premise for more than 48 hours. Businesses will be charged $150 per occurrence. Rules and regulations. The Director of Public Works or their designee is authorized to establish rules and regulations necessary to implement and enforce this section, including standards for acceptable containment systems. And then this ordinance shall take effect upon passage and shall apply to all establishments within 6 months of adoption to allow for compliance. I just want to open it up as a new concept and wanting to hear where we're at and what we think around handling shopping carts. I know that certain establishments like the Stop and Shop on Lincoln Street just adopted a locking system. Not everyone has yet. And there's also not really clear enforcement of who is responsible for carts when they're now off premises. So you can have 4 carts sitting at McNulty just sitting there. And is it Stop and Shop's responsibility? Is it the city's responsibility once it's off the premises? Is unclear currently. So this is draft so that we can start having that conversation of what we think the responsibility should be and if there needs to be an enforcement mechanism for it. Councilor Bacon, I see your hand.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I first want to offer for consideration of the committee a question that Councilor Sullivan asked me to share. He regrets that he couldn't attend tonight. But his question is, why do we need an ordinance to make the owners of a piece of property responsible for the people who are committing larceny? Because the taking of the carts is the taking of an item. I think they cost over $100 or $200 a cart for the shopping centers. And so his question was, it seems like it's a larceny of the store's property by a person rather than the store being negligent. So I let him know I'd put that question forth, that perspective to the committee. And I would note that this particular order or similar order did come up a number of years ago to the council. At that time, it didn't move forward. I can't remember all the exact discussion around it. But I think if we want to be business friendly, I don't see fining businesses when people take their property too business friendly from my own perspective. Thank you.
Thank you. I see Councilor Talheimer's hand.
Is the assumption that every cart that has been taken, quote unquote, from a property is stolen? Like, is there a situation in which people may use it in order to get groceries home? Like, do we have to have a locking system? Is this a gigantic problem? I mean, I'm thinking about places where there isn't a good bus route to get your groceries home, and sometimes people in a neighborhood use the grocery cart to bring the groceries home and then eventually return it. I think we're assuming that there's a crime where crime may not actually have been committed.
Yes, thank you. For me, it was kind of speaking to that particular situation. I do remember as a kid walking to certain places and taking the cart to the house because it was close enough. So I live, again, on Willow Street. Stop and Shop is there at the Kmart Plaza. I actually don't have a license right now, so I can't be driving around here. So if I'm going over there to go grab something, I'm going to take the cart, bring it home. I'll more than likely bring it back. I'm not going to just leave it in the park hanging out. But when you walk in and you take the cart, there is no paper that says, like, not on the thing, you're not signing a contract saying that you have to bring this back, like, in this moment. Yes, there is a responsibility that it's being borrowed to you, right? You're able to utilize it. So my understanding is, I could probably take it to my house, push it there. Not saying that it's a crime. I wouldn't see it as a crime. Like, if the intention is for me to bring it back. I don't live that far from it. That's a different story if someone's taking it with the intention to go around the city and do different things. And I would still challenge and say, what is the crime that they're doing other than leaving it behind as a litter source, right? But that's not the business's fault either. It's kind of a sticky situation where I haven't seen how the locks work unless you put the quarter in. But then again, I find myself going into Aldi's and not having the quarter or the 50 cents. And I'm like, waiting for somebody to come out and like, yo, can I have your cart? I'm sorry. And that's a sucky situation too, where it's like, come on, like, what are we doing here? So, it might be hard for me to, we got to do more work on this if you want me to support this particular topic. Thank you.
I see Mr. Gallagher.
Yes, Councilor Thalheimer, if it's a major problem, and in my opinion, it is a major problem. The Public Works Department has spent a lot of effort clearing shopping carts off the streets on any given week, and a lot of times they end up getting loaded up with all kinds of other trash and God knows whatever else. They are pretty much a nuisance, and there is a current, as mentioned, there is a current city ordinance that states that removal of a shopping cart from the parking lot is a violation of the city ordinance. So there is that aspect of what's wrong with doing it.
Councilor Talheimer?
No, but not larceny is what we're saying. Are there areas in which this is a particular problem? Because I mean, I don't see it around my neighborhood, and I live in an apartment building. Councilor Rivera and I live around the corner from each other. I know that there are carts places, but are there places where there are more carts where it's like a determined problem? We're fishing them out of the canal or whatever. Like, is it location specific? Sorry, it's like 9:30 at night. My brain is mushy.
You're doing great.
They,
Do you want to speak to that, Mr. Gallagher?
Well, it's definitely a heavier issue. You could start with going downhill down Hamden Street from the Lincoln Street Stop and Shop. Your areas at downtown, Wards 4, Wards 1, and Wards 2, I would say is where we end up with the heaviest concentration of the shopping carts. And they will, there was a while there where somebody, it seemed like on once or twice a week, was leaving them down by the Rotary near Avery Field, and it just if you take a ride through South Holyoke and especially South Holyoke and bits of the flats, you'll see plenty of them on any given day.
And I know we've had issues at McNulty. Oh, that might be a specific issue. I just wanted to read into the record the original ordinance that's currently there, which is any individual or group who removes a shopping cart from the business lot where the cart originated shall be subject to a fine of no less than $25 and not more than $300 to be issued by the city police department. So the current fine structure and enforcement structure places the burden on the person who removed the cart, and also means that once carts are abandoned, there's just nothing to be done other than us spend city time doing it and figuring out what to do with these carts that are being abandoned around the city. And I will say it probably clusters around where there are shopping establishments that use carts, and we don't have that many, but that doesn't mean that we won't have others in the future who are cart-based, where we could see more carts in the city. So I'm guessing it's more around where there are establishments that have carts. Like McNulty has a problem because it's next to a Stop and Shop where there's carts. And I think their system in particular, I think they put in a locking system. And I think maybe there's just a learning curve there too, because what's happening is people are attempting to leave with carts, getting right off the property, and they're locking. And then they're like, it's locked. I can't push this cart anymore. And so now I'm going to leave it here. But then there's no enforcement structure other than us now sending DPW and, using their time and labor to go, bring that cart back. Councilor Thalheimer?
I'm curious about the difference between $25 to $300. That's kind of bananas. Is it how nice the cart is, if there are flames on the side of it while you're riding it downhill, like what's what? So, I mean, looking at all of these things, I see all of this, but why wouldn't the business take it upon themselves to lock the carts, given that the business is the one buying the carts and losing the money when the carts go downhill?
Well, I think the idea is to require them to have a locking system so that it's harder for carts to be removed, and then to name that the who's responsible for that system working is them. And so if they're having carts removed, then they should develop a better locking system or come up with a better way of making sure that carts are staying on premises. Councilor Rivera and then Councilor Thalheimer.
I guess for me, I fully get the extra burden that it puts on DPW. It's hard for me on certain situations where it's like this job creation. It's an ecosystem. There's an ecosystem here, right? And for me, I go back to living in the flats and seeing the guy that goes around collecting the cans and using the cart to put the cans in there. So no, we don't got DPW workers that go around picking up cans, but the guy in the cart does. It's an ecosystem, right? Everyone is putting something in with what they're doing. And for me, it's I get some people use it in the way that it doesn't make, that it's detrimental to the system. in general, but in a sense, we're now finding a way to punish everyone, right? So the guy that's out there earning his keep, collecting cans, and granted, yeah, he shouldn't have stole or got in the cart. Maybe he didn't steal it. Maybe he found it down the street, whatever. He shouldn't have did that or shouldn't have it. But at the end of the day, who's picking up the cans that are left behind in the park? Or who's picking up the cans that you find out blowing down the street or whatnot? I know that's not a practice that we do in a sense on a regular basis compared to the person that I know for a fact go by every Thursday when it's recycling every other week to go make sure that all the cans that they see in the blue bins or just rolling around are being picked up, whether it's in the cart or in the back of their trunk of a car and have the whole car full of cans everywhere. I mean, again, there's two different things that we're talking about, but that's still married to the cart, right? And whether people think it's illegal or whatever, it is what it is. Obviously, I'm a different counselor and I have a different perspective. Feel however you want about it. But like, some people are just, they gotta be creative and innovative with how they're gonna hustle. And if that's the case, I don't knock it. And that's just my perspective. Again, there'd have to be more work for me to be able to support it. It's not enough because the cart looks ugly out there. Not for me, at least.
Yeah. Councillor Talheimer and then Councillor Penich.
Yep, I am also concerned about the economic impact this is going to have on different grocery stores. Like I'm thinking about C-Town versus Stop and Shop. Like it's going to be much more expensive, and yeah, Key Foods, exactly. And I know some of them do like limited delivery and stuff, but it is going to be much more impactful for our smaller businesses, particularly ones that are existing in like food deserts and grocery deserts, in ways that are going to impact how effectively they can do business. Whereas larger businesses like Stop and Shop, I mean, one of them just, the nice one, sorry, the nice Stop and Shop, you know, because we're at the other one. Yeah, exactly. When you need things for Passover, you go there because the other one doesn't have it, right? We do have disparate grocery, right? The good one just instituted this already. The other one is struggling, and it's of the same chain, but I do want to see this fleshed out a little bit more, but in its current form, it feels like it's not addressing some of the clear inequality in the city. Thank you.
So I don't have strong feelings either way about this, but I felt like I should point out that the economic rationale for this is that if a business is creating a problem, it is not unusual for regulators to come in and put the cost of mitigating that problem on the business. The other thing that we do, just like nationally on the state level, et cetera, is we do have thresholds for at what point a requirement kicks in, so that a business that doesn't have a huge profile, that doesn't, that can't really afford to do this, is exempted, and that at a certain size or a certain revenue cut, then the requirement to lock your carts so that a theoretical big box store at Kmart Plaza would not infest the neighborhood.
Mr. Gallagher?
All right. Can you hear me?
Yep.
Yes, sir.
Okay. So a couple of thoughts on the matter. The ordinance, the current ordinance mentions removal. It might be, unless somebody actually spots a person exiting the property, could be kind of hard to prove that they're the ones that removed it versus they'll say they found it on the street. I just wonder if there could be something in the line of some kind of ordinance language for somebody who's in possession of the cart, especially if they're clearly nowhere near their home or using it for grocery purposes, like if they've got it loaded up with other items and because there's and maybe on the part you mentioned about notification from DPW director or designee. Maybe the burden on the grocery store comes into place if after 24 hours, if they do not retrieve, if they do not remove their cart, then they're subject to a fine. Something along those lines, possibly.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I appreciate that. Yeah, the current revision that we've been looking at shifts it from being not a fine that the person taking it would pay, but a fine that the business would pay if they were allowing the carts to remain unretrieved for more than 24 hours after they had been notified by the city. With the idea that, of course, you know, they may just have been told, and so that's why it's there. That's why it hasn't been removed. I see Councilor Anderson Burgos has joined us and has his hand up. Do you want to speak, Councilor Anderson Burgos?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Yeah, absolutely. So I was watching on TV. I was just watching the meeting, and then this order came up, and immediately started thinking about. So I wanted to put in my 2 cents just because my experiences with carts. So as many of you know, many years ago, when I decided to turn my life around, I was obviously poor. Just started to go to school. Did not have a car, and so what I would do. And I'm putting this on record, and I have no shame, but I would go to Stop and Shop, put all my laundry, because I didn't have a car, I didn't have people to bring me to, and I would put all my clothes in garbage bags and take it in a cart and bring it down to that Lyman Street laundry and then bring it back. Obviously, I would bring the cart back, but what I'm saying is that there are so many reasons people take these carts throughout the city. You know, we can go from homeless to people who just don't have cars. But yeah, this is something that we're really gonna have to be careful on how we approach it, because you know we're looking at a community, especially in the lower wards, who don't have the needs, you know, to get from A to B, and yeah, this is gonna require some really due diligence and just thinking about moving forward how this is going to impact both the business and our constituents. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilor Thalheimer?
At the risk of prolonging this conversation, how do we know which carts belong to which establishment? I know that like Stop and Shop sometimes has things on there, but those can be removed. I'm not opposed to this. I just think it needs more work. Can we table it?
Mm-hmm. Yes, we can.
I would like to make a motion to table this.
Thank you. Yeah, I think it's been a good conversation, and we can keep working it and bring it back. Okay. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Sorry, just have a sip of water, and it definitely went down the wrong pipe.
No.
Okay. All right. So with that, you have tabled 8. Let's move to item 10.
Motion to take up item 10.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? This is Panich ordered that Chapter 2, Section 9 of the Code of Ordinances be amended to provide that all adoptions of ordinances require the affirmative votes of a simple majority of the entire membership of the council for passage, except where otherwise required by our charter or by state law. The current ordinance, which requires a 2/3 vote of councilors present and voting, is inconsistent with both our charter and with the council rules. To the maker of the order.
Thank you very much. First off, since I filed this order, I think at our very first substantive meeting in January, we have since amended our rules. So that piece of this is taken care of. But we do have, and we adopted under interesting circumstances, this ordinance saying that all ordinances shall be adopted by a 2/3 majority of the entire council. Councilor Devine tells me that once upon a time, very long ago, we followed the standard American practice of having a majority vote, and a majority vote was sufficient for passage unless the mayor vetoed it, in which case there was a 2/3 override. I have heard many stories over the years of how this came to be basically a filibuster rule in our rules, which we have the power to overcome. And, I think that even with the power to override it at the rules level, the history of the city council and the history of our past few years have shown why this was a very bad idea. It may have been well-intended at the beginning. It may have been an attempt at making sure there was a consensus for all ordinance changes. But in practice, it has become something that prevents the city council from acting. We hear a great deal about the city council's power. The city council's power is obviously diminished considerably when no serious work can be done because a relatively small faction is able to block any action or to extract concessions that the majority is not really willing to give us. And again, this is an extremely unusual way to run things. The normal American process is to have a legislative branch that can pass legislation by a simple majority. And I would like very much for us to take the opportunity to move to a simple majority for passage and to see whether that allows us to do a better job for our constituents and respond more effectively than we have been able to real crises in municipal government. We have heard a great deal about whose fault it was that we are still dealing with the Municipal Modernization Act. I think if we had a simple majority rule 2 years ago, we would be done with this now. And as for the actual form, I spoke to, or rather emailed back and forth with City Solicitor Bissonnette over this past week. And I think that, I may be saying too much. I invite him to jump in if I do. But I think his view of the norm in American governance matches mine. And we talked about getting legal form in for tonight's meeting because, of my own not trafficking papers properly. That didn't happen. But he did suggest that this would be a good place to add a couple of other just confirmations of the vote rules we had. So the proposed language, which I do have in front of me, would add not only the majority threshold for a ordinance change or adoption, but number 2, passage of all financial rules shall be by majority vote of those members present and voting. And number 3, passage of home rule amendments shall be a 2/3 vote of those members present and voting. And both of those are just reiterations of the existing rule. The rule change would read something like, number 1, unless otherwise provided for by Massachusetts general laws or the charter, all adoptions of ordinances require a simple majority vote of the full membership of the city council for passage, notwithstanding the presence of a quorum, and shall be deemed passed if a simple majority of the full city council vote that the legal form be ordained. And we wrote it that way to make sure that there was no abuse potential for a situation where, for instance, for some reason, we had only 7 members present for a meeting, which constituted a quorum, and a majority of that group, 4 votes would be sufficient to pass an ordinance. Obviously, that would not be good, and this language ensures that that can't happen. And rather than going on and on about this, because I think that it is both like a lesson in the past couple of years of our government and a philosophical question about whether you actually think that a majority should have the right to enact its laws, I can leave it there and listen to somebody else.
Thank you, Councillor Panich. I wanted to say that I really appreciate the language underneath number 1. I think when this came up, it was in my first ordinance meeting, and I had voted no on the basis that I didn't think that it should be 2/3 of the full membership or 2/3 of present and voting. I thought that it should be a majority. I will say, however, that I personally am not comfortable with us talking about 2 and 3, only because while they may be related, they feel to me like different orders than even the original order language. And so I would prefer, I think, just to focus on 1, and if we ask for legal form, for us to only look at that, and then to take up other orders related to what you have here for 2 and 3.
And I am perfectly comfortable with that.
Other folks, I see Councillor Bacon and then Councillor Rivera. Councillor Bacon, is your hand up?
Yes, I'm sorry, I forgot to unmute myself.
No
Thank you.
worries.
I agree with you that items 2 and 3 need to have their own separate orders. And I would note that our current ordinance says 2/3 of those members present, not present and voting. So they would just, as you stated, need to be separate orders. So I appreciate that. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Rivera?
My thing was the question around why they'd have to be 2 separate orders. I could see them being 1 order, but I can also see them 3 actually separate orders. But is it because we don't think that they'll all pass together, or is it because?
No, not even for any practical or political reason other than that Ms. Councilor Panich's original order specifically said that we needed to amend to provide that the adoption of ordinances require the affirmative votes of a simple majority, and it doesn't mention home rule amendments or financial orders. And so I just feel like it needs to be a different order.
No, that I'm on board with that. Thank you for that clarification. That was it. And to be honest, I guess for me, when I was a part of this, my thought process was present and voting when doing this, and
versus full membership.
Full membership is full membership, but full membership is whomever. Like if you're not there, it's not necessarily full membership. Like for me, full membership is whether you're there or not, and it's if you got 12 members and only 7 people show up, or 8 people show up, and that's rarely the case, but ultimately it's like, so then there's 4 no votes automatically. Yep. And that to me doesn't make sense.
You gotta show up.
Like it's not fair to the process democratically. That's not democratic. That's automatic no votes. Because the person couldn't make it, doesn't matter what the situation or circumstance is. And to me, that was never clear, or makes any sense. But I guess the approach we're taking now kind of opens that up. That kind of eliminates that. Like it's just majority vote. Doesn't matter how many people are here. If there's 10, it's majority vote. If it's 13, it's majority vote. So that I guess that makes more sense to me, because there's too many times where certain people can't make it to a meeting, but they're feeling forced as a counselor to have to show up to this meeting because it doesn't matter whether you have someone probably in the hospital or whatnot. You're feeling forced that you have to show up to this meeting because there's a particular important vote, and if you don't go, that vote is not going to go in the favor of whatever it is that you're trying to accomplish. And to me, that's not public process. That's taking advantage of a public process. But I appreciate the sentiment and the direction we're trying to go now. Thank you.
Councilor Panich?
Yeah, this language, and certainly we can write it in such a way that you're confident that it says what I intend it to say, is meant to address in part that situation. Because if there are 6 or if there are 7 yeses, there are 7 yeses, and it doesn't matter whether you're here or not. And if there aren't 7, then we don't have a majority and it shouldn't go forward.
I would like to ask for us to receive the language that's just underneath what's named as 1 here in legal form for our next meeting so that we could move that language to council.
Motion to approve the.
To ask for legal form
Yep,
for
ask
the
for legal
language underneath 1.
Legal form for the first item that's on the document that says 10 on the right-hand corner.
Right. And then table.
And table it after the fact.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay, thank you. We have 1 item left. Yay.
Yay.
Okay, moving to item 11. All right. Item 11, everyone okay if I take it up? Yeah?
Might as well.
All right, anyone want to make the motion?
Motion to take up item 11.
Thank you. Second. All those in favor? Aye. This is from Counselor Bacon. Order that the income level be increased to the maximum allowed for seniors seeking relief. To the maker of the order.
Thank you, Madam Chair. This will be short and sweet. I reached out to our Chief Assessor, Deb Brunel, and she indicated to me that at this time, we are at the highest allowable income for our seniors. She also did, and just, I doubt anybody's still listening, but in case anybody ever watches our meetings, she did remind me that they go by the gross income, which does eliminate more people than they think because they think they're eligible based on their taxable income. So that is a controlling point. And to that point, I hope the chair will be able to take up my recently filed order to allow for voluntary contributions for tax relief for seniors and disabled people that I filed at our last meeting.
Okay.
Because we can't do anything further here, so it would be considered complied with. So my motion is that this is complied with.
Second.
Under discussion. Counselor Bacon, do you have at your readiness, and if you don't, absolutely, that's fine, but do you have the number of what the highest allowable income is if we're at that threshold already?
I'm sorry, I don't have that exact number.
Okay. Well, by the time we get to the meeting, we can always ask the assessor for that too, just so we can say it into the public record for folks so they understand that.
Right, and the key thing was that it's the gross income, which can be very different from the taxable. Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yes, Counselor Talheimer?
So just for the record, the order says that the income level be increased to the maximum allowed for seniors seeking tax relief. But in fact, we are already at the max income level allowable.
Correct.
Okay, I just wanted to be super clear about that.
Cool.
Yeah, that's why I said it's complied with because we're already there.
All right.
Oh, my question was that it be increased, like we can't increase it. So I am fine with the will of the body, but I was leaning toward leave to withdraw. But at this point, all good.
Okay. Any other further discussion? Counselor Rivera?
In the last, I know Councilor Bacon brought up the voluntary contribution thing. And through the chair to Councilor Bacon, can you kind of elaborate on that? Because I heard it a couple times, but I'm trying to understand. Is this just like me being able to donate money to a senior center to pay their taxes?
Yes, so we would have to adopt a state law that allows us to ask taxpayers through 1, 2, or 3 different ways if they want to voluntarily put money into an account that could then be used by a group maybe similar to like the CPA group that would administer it, and then make it available to seniors and disabled people who aren't perhaps otherwise eligible but are still in a low income area.
So wouldn't that be a tax?
Well,
it's voluntary. You would check off on one of your tax forms.
Fund. If you ever
Should the
looked at
city
your,
approve it?
If you ever looked at your tax document, it has on the right-hand corner, like, do you want to donate extra money to the Veterans Emergency Fund? And you can check off that box and you can put how much you want. And then you can send they always say, don't add it into your regular check. and make a separate check,
Yeah.
put in the line item, Veterans Emergency Fund, and you can send it in with your taxes, and then they put that towards the veteran. So it would be like creating a different emergency fund, I think.
Yeah.
But it's a separate
Totally
order
voluntary.
that
It's
Councilor
not
Reagan
an,
said.
No, I fully get that. I'm just perplexed that like we haven't tried that in other situations for like schools and stuff like that and support teachers and equipment for like pencils and papers and stuff to it. And it's the first time I've heard of it. So for me, thank you for elaborating and breaking it down.
yeah, it's just a state law that I found that's just for that. I don't know why they wrote it that way, but.
Okay. Well, we have a motion on the table to mark it as complied with. It's been seconded. All those in favor?
Aye.
I
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Yeah.
Thank you, everyone.
Good night.
Good night and good work.
Good night.
Good night.